Hello and welcome back everyone, we Weeb Online, and today I'm gonna continue the story What If Naruto Had the Dark Sharingan Part 2. If you enjoy this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
In a dimly lit room, 11-year-old Hyuga Hinata sat on a chair with her head in her hands and tears streaming from her eyes. With only one light hanging overhead and swinging and creaking, the room was desolate. Hinata glanced up at the black screen on the wall across from her. Then, words and kanji flashes. Being alone, hatred, 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 Chu-san, hatred, hatred. Her father's words, "You are a disappointment," boomed. Tears filled her eyes as she responded, "No, I'm not." On the screen. "Yes you are." Hiyashi's face appeared on screen, stern and unyielding, as he said, "You cannot even beat your younger sister. You are a failure." "No, no, no," Hinata screamed as she rocked in the chair. "You are not fit to be the heir. Chu-san. You are the pride of the main branch. And you are worthless." "No, you are. Get out of my sight." The Hinata yelled, "Tou-san." On the screen. Hinata muttered, "No. Please, please," but she was unable to look away from the screen. Being alone, hatred, fear, hopelessness, 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 sadness, weep, 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 then you pass away. Perish, perish. Hinata couldn't keep up with the rapid flashes of death and destruction as the screen turned red. Blood-soaked figures, a shinobi wielding a kunai, and a sizable contingent of mothers with children. She saw flashes of warlords, fires, tsunamis, a fox with 9 tails, and massive disasters. However, she saw herself as the final figure. Everything was dark, including her icy, dark eyes. There was a faint trace of something darker in her eyes, which were the same shade of pale lavender. Her face was endowed with a malevolent grin. Shuddering at the sight of her so evil, Hinata blinked through her tears. With a voice that was an exact duplicate of Hinata's, the figure innocently asked, "Why do you cry?" "Because I am a failure," Hinata muttered. "What will crying do? Relieve my suffering. Will sobbing actually make your pain go away?" "Hi, avoid deceiving yourself. As usual, you're lying to yourself." "I am not. If you keep this up there will be nothing left of you." "What do you mean?" "You will be consumed." "Consumed? Hi, by what?" "Your own fear." "My own fear." "Failure, sadness, rage, nervousness, and anxiety. These feelings are all part of the human psyche. These are your fears, but loneliness is the one you fear the most. That nobody will care about you or love you. Isn't that correct?" said the evil-looking alter ego Hinata. "Who are you?" "I am you, but I am who I am." "Yes, but what lies far beneath you is me. All the bottled-up feelings. I'm not real. Your thoughts are what have motivated me to exist. Are you an alter ego?" "I am who I am. I can't alter. I won't change either. I'm not a persona. After all, this is just a figment of your imagination. This is just a fantasy. Yes, you retreat here when you are frightened, scared. This is a superficial world, filled with nothing but you. You stay here because you are frightened, and do not want to be hurt anymore." "No, that is untrue. I'm not scared at all." "Really? What about you dreaming of Naruto-kun hurting you, breaking your heart? Do you remember that dream? You cried for hours, and you hid here. How are you aware of that?" "Like I said, I am you. You are me." "No, you're not me. You are a totally different person. Stop lying to yourself. When will you figure out that you must face these fears? Sooner or later." "No, I'm not required to. Nobody can create me. If you don't, you will die. And when you die, darkness will consume you. And no one will be able to save you, isn't that right? Because you're all alone." "I'm not by myself. Really? Hello, I'm not alone. Really? Hello, really? I am not by myself. Really? I hate myself. I'm lonely, and I'm alone. I can't look for attention. Nobody hears me, and nobody sees me. I'm by myself. Lucky you. You won't be alone. Huh. You are destined to have a soulmate. Perhaps you will never visit this place again. Perhaps your soulmate will save you from the darkness that consumes your soul, perhaps." The altar vanishing, Hinata shuddered, tucking her head between her thighs and raising her feet as tears streamed down her cheeks. Why me?" She let out a scream. Unconsciously shuddering, Hinata shook the memory's sickening sensation away. Darkness, she pondered. It was only now that she recalled that memory. And at that moment it haunted her to the core. She gazed at the 3 wooden poles that served as their initial training ground as genin. Unconsciously, Hinata grinned. The day that I met Naruto-kun. Reminiscent of their time together and the time he had gained the confidence to kiss her on the cheek, Hinata grinned. He would then visit the hospital every day, usually looking worse for wear, but he had vanished for the past week, claiming to be going on a covert training trip. Gazing at the posts, Hinata let out a sigh. She pondered, I wonder when Naruto-kun will return. Abruptly, a figure encircled her waist with powerful arms. The figure put their hand over her mouth just as she was about to scream. Before the figure whirled Hinata around, she was stunned. And there he was, Naruto Uzumaki. Before Hinata realized it was him, she felt a sudden embrace. As he spun her around, she grinned and laughed joyfully. She gazed at him, his new appearance entirely unfamiliar. He was wearing a rough, long-sleeved white shirt with a cape and a hood that was nearly entirely white. The hood was on his head, hiding his blonde hair, and the inside of the cape was red. Consider Assassin's Creed's Altair Ezio. He was not up, but he wore a white mask that resembled Kakashi's. A few people were able to see Naruto's genuine smile as it hung loosely around his neck. That was the case with Hinata. You're back, Hinata joyfully exclaimed, putting her arms around his neck once more. Hi, Naruto said gently, his arms encircling her in a protective embrace and his forehead pressed against her. The moment Naruto showed up, Hinata's pessimistic thoughts vanished. Perhaps he can defeat the darkness, Hinata thought cheerfully. Then Naruto took Hinata's hands and became solemn. Naruto uttered the words, Hinata-chan. I will have my revenge on Neji for what he did to you, serious. Hinata scowled. Naruto-kun, revenge is not good. Do what you wish with my cousin, but I beg you to spare his life, replied Hinata. Naruto said, he nearly killed you. How can I guarantee that? In his eyes, Hinata gazed. Because I know that you are who you are, and that I am who I am. And I know that you, Naruto-kun, will not kill in cold blood, since you are far too good for that. No, I know that you can hold your word to not killing him. Please, do not kill my cousin, Hinata once more said. After scowling, Naruto sighed and nodded. Naruto finally said, all right, I swear I won't kill your cousin. Hinata grinned. She remarked, good, I'll hold you to that promise. Hinata pivoted, gazing at the stadium that towered over her, where she would see her cousin and the man she loved. Naruto questioned, Hinata-chan, do you think I am strong? Hinata looked over at him. Of course you are Naruto-kun. What makes you doubt that you are strong? True strength. I wonder what true strength really is achieving it possible? Replied Naruto. Hinata gave him a look. I believe it is. I believe true strength is fighting for everything you believe in, and everybody who is precious to you. That is how I lost to Neji. I was outclassed, but I almost beat him, Hinata replied firmly. After grinning, Naruto approached her stealthily. Hinata backed up against a training pole and turned to see Naruto smiling. Hinata was having trouble breathing. He was very near. She turned crimson because she couldn't help it. He reached up and gently cupped her cheek. Naruto gently closed the distance and asked, do you remember my promise? Hinata-chan. With her eyes still wide and fixed on Naruto's azure eyes, Hinata nodded naively. Her body was immobile, and her mouth refused to speak. Well, Naruto leaned forward and said, I think you actually won. Naruto shot back as 2 figures suddenly emerged from the bush. Sakura and Ino were engaged in a heated argument and hardly gave the couple any attention. Sakura exclaimed, Urusei Ino pig. I am far superior. No way, I am better than you. If you didn't have such a large forehead I would have won. Responded Ino. Sakura and Ino spit out their tongues, then turned to see Naruto reading a book calmly and Hinata, who was flushed. Ino inquired, did we interrupt something? Hinata said, no Ino-san. It's fine. Sakura bent forward. Naruto. Naruto gave her a smile. Yo, he said. Whoa, a fresh appearance, she muttered. Not bad, isn't it? I'm impressed. This reminds me of the cool look you had before. Ino interrupted, saying, one of those Anbu, should you take away the cape? I mentioned Ino pig, Sakura shouted. After giving Hinata a quick glance and both of them shrugging, Naruto and Hinata walked away from the 2 girls arguing in the dust and toward the stadium, taking each other's hands. With the crowd gathered around him, Naruto stood in the center of the stadium, looking down the line of competitors while holding his cheek where Hinata had kissed him before leaving to go into the stands. The majority of people are here to witness the last Uchiha, Naruto said, but Sasuke is missing. I wonder what string they'll pull to get him to compete. Jiraiya and the Sandaime Hokage stood at the top of the stands, observing from a distance. For the 30th time, Sandaime declared, Jiraiya-kun, I don't need any help. All I want to do is hang out with you, sensei. Jiraiya responded, nothing more, even though his true intention was to keep Sarutobi safe. The Kazekage gazed down at the group, but in reality, Anbu intelligence had warned that there might be an attack of some kind, so the Konoha shinobi force was on high alert, with many more on duty than usual. Who is Hokage Dono the first? The Kazekage inquired. Sarutobi responded quietly, I think it's Uzumaki Naruto and Hyuga Neji Kazuke's Dono. Really? The Kazekage retorted, I've discovered that Uzumaki Naruto is not all he seems. What are you saying? Sandaime inquired, assuming the Kazekage was speaking of the nine-tailed fox that was imprisoned inside Naruto's abdomen. Everyone had turned to watch the Kazekage as he spoke, his voice rising above the noise of the entire crowd. It has come to me from a completely reliable and trustworthy source that Uzumaki Naruto is really a Uchiha. Immediately, the crowd erupted, and after a range of reactions, everyone turned to gaze at Naruto, whose face was hidden by his mask and his eyes were wide. When Naruto heard the Kazekage speak, his whole body froze, and the crowd went crazy, shouting at him and calling him a liar. Naruto was used to this, but people were shouting that he was a liar and a fraud, and he shuddered, trying to block out the world. Similarly, Sarutobi and Jiraiya were stunned, remembering the wave mission when Zabuza mentioned the Sharingan, but they thought he was hallucinating and that Naruto could not have the Sharingan. Hinata thought, if it's true, why didn't you tell me? That is untrue. Deception. Cheater. A Uchiha is not possible for him. Naruto closed his eyes and prayed for a speedy conclusion as voices broke out. The Kyuubi's voice said, calm down, it will be alright. After taking a deep breath, Naruto opened his eyes. Silence. They all stood up and turned to face the Sandaime Hokage. Sarutobi thought, pardon me, Naruto, but this is for the best. Perhaps the villagers will treat you better this way, since you cannot hide this forever. It's accurate, he declared, Uzumaki Naruto is actually Uchiha Naruto. The crowd erupted once more, with the odds abruptly shifting in Naruto's favor and everyone looking forward to the first fight of Uchiha versus a Hyuga. Legends of fierce battles between these two clans were commonplace, the arrogant Uchihas versus the clandestine Hyugas. Naruto was taken aback. Why? Naruto asked himself. Why? Everyone had frozen, including Hinata. It was astounding to think that Uzumaki Naruto was actually a Uchiha. Sakura was shocked to learn that her teammate was actually a Uchiha. Anko sat next to a stunned Iruka and thought, the Kyuubi brat is really a Uchiha How interesting. As the Sandaime Hokage raised his arm, the commotion gradually subsided. Enough waiting, let's begin the Chunin exam final stage, he said. Fireworks flew into the air, and the Kazekage smiled as the crowd roared. With a sly smile, he thought, it's all going to work out. Expose Naruto, shock them, and then strike when the time is right. Due to the economic and political importance of the event, Gekko Hayate stepped in between Baki and the Anbu after escaping Baki with the help of some unseen people and delivering the warnings. As a result, the Chunin exams continued. Please, could the two following contestants stay, while the other contestants stay, Gekko said in a loud voice. While Neji and Naruto remained on the floor, the participants moved to the stands for discussions. Excellent. Hyuga Neji vs. Uchiha Naruto will be the first match, Gekko yelled. How do we know Naruto is who he really is? A voice from the crowd screamed. The stadium echoed with cries of agreement, and Naruto, still reeling from what had happened, looked around before reaching up slowly, lowering his mask and pulling back his hood. Naruto pulled up the mask and drew back his hood, asking, satisfied, with an irritated expression. All right, you can start. Gekko jumped backwards away from the two and yelled. The crowd leaned forward to watch the match, and Neji was the first to move, closing his eyes and lifting his fingers. Goodbye, he screamed, his veins showing. Naruto calmly brought his fingers to his lips as he gazed at him. He uttered the word, Sharingan, and opened his eyes. He stared back at Neji, and the crowd gasped as 3 black tomos began to swirl. Impossible. You Uchiha. And the Kyuubi brat. This isn't feasible. How is this possible? After standing erect, Naruto turned to face Neji and drew back his arm to reveal Hinata's blood still on it. People immediately began to whisper and lean forward even more, indicating that Uchiha Naruto would not show any mercy. Sarutobi gave Jiraiya a look. You removed Naruto-kun for a week, then. How did you force him to do it? Jiraiya inquired. Jiraiya smiled. There are 3 primary points. Strength, speed, and stealth. The 3 S's, Jiraiya answered. The Sandaime Hokage gave him a startled look. Yes, the 3 S's, a solid base upon which to build. How did he fare? The Hokage inquired. Outstanding. It's frightening how much potential he has. He is unquestionably the son of Minato and Kushina, Jiraiya said quietly enough for the Hokage to hear. Indeed, was Sandaime's gentle message. Naruto caught Neji's attention. Stop. You are at the mercy of fate. Your fate dictates that you will lose, he said. Naruto gave him a fierce look. Go to hell. Destiny is meaningless. You can resist fate, Naruto said angrily. I'm not intimidated by your rage. Neji responded, and yes, your fate says that you will lose. Under his mask, Naruto grinned. I'll bring you down to earth if you are so naive as to believe that nonsense. Neji Hyuga, I'll beat you, Naruto said. With that, the battle that everyone had now been expecting would start. Hinata was observing intently as Naruto stood facing Neji in a tense and unsettling atmosphere. Naruto-kun, she thought, do your best. Neji's eyes widened and he jumped to the side, rolling on the ground, as Naruto slowly pulled out 3 kunai in his palm and threw them at him with incredible speed. At that moment, Neji realized what the kunai were for. Uchiha Naruto was nowhere to be found. Under Hiashi and then under Jiraiya, Naruto had developed the ability to completely conceal his chakra, which was nearly impossible in the shinobi world, especially with a person with as much chakra reserves as Naruto. Neji was searching around, trying to find him, when he spotted him. There, he thought, behind the tree. The clone smiled and vanished as Neji charged at the tree, then skidded at the end and slammed his palm into Naruto's chest. Smoke from the clone erupted and more smoke bombs were thrown down, covering the area in smoke, and Neji, who was blind and could not see through the smoke, was hit in multiple places at once, an elbow to the head, a knee to the gut, and a fist to the groin before being flung back into the center. Neji gasped, attempting to pull himself back up, and Naruto strode out, smirking. I hid underground because I knew you would discover my clone and attack it. I could have beaten you there and then in the cloud of smoke, and I have the advantage. However, you can thank your cousin for my decision to show mercy. Naruto's response was, surrender, you know you have lost. With a sneer, Neji got to his feet. What information would you have about me? I'm doomed to be a servant for eternity. Neji shouted. You can still live your life despite that. It's just a barrier to get past, but you're weak. By taking advantage of those who are weaker than you and adopting the belief that fate is predetermined, you conceal your weakness. You are aware that fate is always changing, and you can't stand to see your cousin Hinata superior to you. So you tried to kill Hera, you tried to kill my Hinata-channa after she obviously prevailed. And now, you will pay, Naruto spit out, rushing. Then, Naruto slammed his fist into Neji's cheek, followed by a leg sweep, and then he did a handstand and attempted to kick Neji, but Neji rolled away. Neji stood up, while Naruto flipped up, arms at the ready. Neji charged, while Naruto jumped backwards, blurring through hand signals. Naruto charged, and he moved much faster than Neji. Doden. Doria Taiga. All that was required for Naruto to charge forward and attack the opening was for Neji to stumble and the ground he was standing on to turn to mud. Neji smirked as his feet struck solid rock beneath him. Someone was assisting him in defeating Naruto, and he would not allow Naruto to escape punishment. Naruto saw his change in posture, but it was too late. He had only one chance, and in an instant, he had raised his fingers to his lips and muttered a word. I am within striking distance of you. Rokuja Yansha Hake. He uttered those words. 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. Neji smirked as he walked calmly up to Naruto's limp body, which vanished in a cloud of smoke after Naruto flew backwards, landed on the ground, and lay motionless. Nani? Neji thought. Neji froze as Naruto stood behind him. Neji screamed in agony as Naruto drove his face into the ground, dragging him face-first along the hard dirt before throwing him in the air and kicking him across the arena, his foot planted in Neji's abdomen. "How are you doing?" Naruto asked, then slammed his knee into Neji's back before the shinobi could react. Naruto then flew through hand signals. Kaden. Ga Kakyu no Jutsu. Neji, who was severely bruised and bleeding in multiple places, was pushed into a spinning motion by instinct, even though he was sucking in oxygen from the kick. The big fireball was headed straight for him. Kaden. Defending himself against the fireball, Neji flew like a whirlwind. When he stopped, he saw Naruto's fist slam into his jaw, then another fist hit his stomach. Neji staggered back, but was tripped by two clones behind him and fell to the ground, while another clone overhead landed with an axe kick. Wow, while the opponent was in Kaden, he completed all of that. Unbelievable, he's brilliant. Neji's lifeless body was in front of Naruto. Surrender. Naruto moved forward, a kunai to Neji's neck as he stumbled to his feet, gasping for air. Surrender, he said again. Naruto staggered back, aware that he was about to enter a world of agony, as Neji slammed his head into his face and swatted the kunai away after staring at him. Hake Rokuja Yan Sha. 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. Neji grinned as Naruto flew back and hit the ground. "I appear to have won again." With a knowing smirk, he stated, "Fate can never be changed." Naruto had obviously won, but Neji had attacked him again, and Hinata was enraged. Sakura put a hand on her shoulder, and Hinata looked at her. "Naruto is going to be alright," she whispered. "He promised to defeat Neji, and he will." After giving her a long look, Hinata nodded and grinned gently. "You're right, Hi, he'll beat Neji," she declared. The adage, "behind every great man is an even greater woman," is accurate. Every tenketsu appeared to have been sealed, and Naruto was in a world of agony. He rolled onto his stomach and raised himself up onto his hands and knees, as if breathing were killing him from the inside out. He exclaimed, "It's not over yet," and Sharingan turned off. He staggered to his feet, panting, and Neji gazed at him for a moment before a glimmer of darkness appeared in his eyes. He had the upper hand, the advantage. His opponent was unable to use chakra, and it hurt so much to move at all. "Perish!" He screamed and charged forward, aiming for his heart with his palm up. Knowing that he might provoke the wrath of the Hyuga clan and numerous other political leaders, Hayate refrained from interfering. In an instant, Neji closed the distance and his palm struck Naruto's swaying body, right where his heart was. Time appeared to stop, like fresh rain, enabling life to emerge from the earth. A timeless echo, that is. Similar to the sound of grass swaying in the wind or the gentle murmur of trees. Naruto gazed at the hand that was pressed to his heart. Would the sky weep for me if it had the ability to cry? Naruto pondered. Neji glared at Naruto while gazing into his eyes. After grinning, Naruto fell to his knees and choked on red blood. Neji stood up, his hand poised to hit Naruto in the head if he reacted. "Surrender," Neji said. With his hair covering his eyes, Naruto remained silent. At last, Naruto looked up at Neji with a defiant expression. He inquired, "When will you tell them?" Neji scowled and attempted to hit him, but he halted out of pure curiosity. Neji questioned, "What are you talking about?" Naruto questioned, "When will you tell them that you are a fake?" The crowd erupted in laughter as Naruto's words were heard. After blinking in surprise, Neji raised his head in a furious manner. Neji spit out, "What are you talking about?" Naruto grinned once more, his eyes gleaming. "You a fraud, a fake. You are not Hyuga Neji," said Naruto. Neji said, "You lie, that is impossible." "Is it really? Perhaps all you are seeing is genjutsu. Perhaps this entire fight everyone has witnessed is nothing but a fraud. Have you ever thought of this concept? Have you realized that I have fooled you so well that you are unable to see past the genjutsu?" replied Naruto. "What the hell? You dare mock the Byakugan? We are all seeing," Neji yelled. Naruto smiled. Then he was gone. The crowd gasped, and Neji looked around in disbelief. A fist struck Neji's face, and just as fast as Neji felt the blow, a knee struck his forehead and his head was grabbed. Neji was kicked with an axe from above as he flew back. Naruto's foot slammed into Neji's face as he fell to the ground. Then he vanished just as fast as Naruto had come. With his voice resonating throughout the arena, Naruto questioned, "If you cannot see your opponent, are you able to fight them?" In a desperate attempt to sense Naruto's chakra, Neji turned. Then he experienced a slight nudge to his left. There. It's too late. After slamming his fist into Neji's head, Naruto pulled Neji's head back with a kunai that materialized in his hand. Naruto tightened his hold on Neji's hair as he screamed in agony. Despite Neji's best efforts, Naruto's hands were like an iron grip. Neji could only scream because he felt like his head was about to blow up. For Hinata, he muttered, chopping off a significant portion of Neji's hair. With wide eyes, Neji withdrew and turned to see Naruto clutching a large portion of his hair. Neji felt his hair cut horribly short, just above his neck, and lifted his hand to the back of his head. Neji spit out, "You will pay for this." Naruto gave Neji a composed glance. "No, you will pay." Naruto screamed. Naruto's hand skillfully deflected Neji's palm as they charged at one another, and his other hand extended to exploit the gap. It approached Naruto's face before he turned and allowed the palm to pass by his cheek. Neji felt himself flung against the hard floor, and his eyes widened as Naruto's other hand took hold of his arm. He rolled frantically in an attempt to get away after barely avoiding Naruto's kick to his face. As he rolled, Naruto charged at him, kicking hard and slamming his foot into Neji's chest. Neji crashed into a tree, choking out blood as he flew. He stood up, deflecting Naruto's kick but not his fist, which struck him in the middle of his face and caused his nose to break with a sickening crack. Neji cupped his nose, a split lip and swollen eye gushing blood. Naruto gave Neji a chilly look before vanishing from view. Even with his Byakugan, Neji spun around, searching wildly. He tried to block out the sight of the blood streaming from his mouth and nose. The ability to turn invisible was a genjutsu that had taken everyone by surprise. They would struggle to find Naruto, with the exception of powerful Chunins, Junins, and of course the Hokage and Anbu squads. Even for the most proficient Hyuga, it would take a few seconds for the Byakugan to notice the chakra outpouring because Naruto was suppressing it. Sarutobi smiled from his chair. He thought, "I could hardly feel him activate a genjutsu, but it's about to get really interesting." Naruto then deactivated the genjutsu, revealing it. With Naruto standing directly behind him, his eyes closed and two fingers raised to his lips, Neji stood in utter shock. Then he started talking. He began, "I am the bone of my sword." Neji spun around and hit Naruto's head with his flying palm. With his leg tripping Neji, Naruto swung around and ducked, pivoting on his left palm. As Naruto backflipped and closed his eyes, he held a scroll that burst and sent smoke into the air, causing Neji to fall. Naruto, holding the fabled Kazama katana, leapt back from the smokescreen. He stared at Neji and went on, "Fire is my blood and steel is my body." With wide eyes, the Hokage and Kazekage leaned forward. "Impossible," the Hokage muttered. Jiraiya was relaxing beside the Hokage when Naruto's opening remarks hit him. "That jutsu," Jiraiya bellowed, looking at the Hokage. The Hokage nodded as he glanced at Jiraiya. Desperately, Neji charged at Naruto, but Naruto retreated, dodging, parrying, and weaving. Neji was launched into the air when Naruto's fist struck his head. Naruto went on, "I have produced more than 1,000 blades." Hiashi shuddered. He was reminded of this jutsu. There would be absolutely no chance for Neji. It went on, unknown to Detha, Naruto's voice. Desperately, Neji flipped up and threw 3 kunai with exploding tags. Rolling to the left, Naruto slid to a halt and returned Neji's gaze. "Nor known to Lifa," Naruto explained. The audience stared in anticipation as Naruto's voice rang high, "have withstood pain to create many weapons." As a last resort, Neji charged once more to halt the jutsu, but without success. A kick sent him flying, his other palm was parried, a knee struck his gut, and his palm widened. As he slammed the katana, sheath and all, into the ground, Naruto muttered, "Yet these hands will hold nothing." With his eyes closed, Naruto knelt. "So is I pray." Stop. When the Hokage straightened up, everyone gasped. Naruto glanced at the Hokage, and then a smile spread across his face. The Hokage was incredulous. After using his genjutsu, Naruto had used it to try to save chakra and energy. After Naruto lied, the Hokage declared, "Naruto wins, I have no doubt that he will win with that jutsu." Everyone's expectations fell apart. They hoped to witness a fantastic display of jutsu. Neji was enraged, gazing icily at the Hokage. He spat, "I will not lose," and then raised and lowered his arm. Suddenly, 2 Hyuga groups moved. One moved to encircle Hanabi and Hiashi. He raised both of his guards, prepared to defend him at any time. Around Hinata and Sakura, Another group of 4 people gathered, prepared to murder Hinata at any time. What the hell is this? Hiyashi sprang to his feet, furious. A Hyuga elder smiled and got to his feet, laughing and clapping. Are you so surprised, Hiyashi? A majority of us main branch elders have decided to put things into our own hands, to bring the Hyuga back into the glory days. All you have done is held back how powerful the Hyuga area, and we will bring back the days where people used to worship the ground where we stood, proudly declared the Hyuga. The audience's only expression was one of shock. More than they had paid for, they had received. He had long black hair, grim lines around his eyes, and was in his late 50s. He wore the custom white robe that most Hyuga counselors wore, and his nose was slightly crooked, likely from a broken nose. He was ranked highly among the Hyuga elders and wasn't particularly attractive, but he wasn't unattractive either. A man of prestige and authority, he was genuinely dangerous. A formidable foe and a brilliant ally. Hiyashi turned to face the other council members. While some appeared surprised, the others were smiling because they had been aware of the plan. Hiyashi turned to Hinata and asked, "What do you want, Takashi?" The older one smiled. "You and your family to resign from the main branch, and to be branded by the cursed bird cage seal. Also, Neji will automatically become a Chunin. You would not want a civil war on your hands, would you, a Hokage dono?" Takashi grinned. With a look that could kill plants, Naruto fixed Takashi with his gaze. But Takashi had benefited from years of experience, and he appeared to be only marginally impacted. "Ah, Naruto-kun, if you get involved I will not hesitate to kill your girlfriend," replied Takashi. Naruto's eyes shifted to Hinata, who appeared a little alarmed but straightened her back and put on a confident front when she noticed Naruto staring at her. She was confident that Naruto would always keep her safe. Naruto and the Hokage exchanged a message as they looked at one another. Then Naruto grinned, his voice cutting through the muttering of the throng. According to him, unlimited blade works. The world setting suddenly changed. There was a wasteland-like plateau in Blade. However, the fact that there were innumerable blades embedded in the ground hid everyone who was standing together in the arena. Naruto approached a blade and withdrew it from the earth. They had all been split up. One section contained both nobles and commoners, the next contained ninjas, the next contained his precious people, and the final section contained the Hyuga traders. Calmly, the cage stood by himself. He raised his head. He grinned and said, "Welcome to my world," focusing only on Takeshi. "Ha, please," Takeshi said. Naruto snarled as he approached Takeshi and his Hyuga group, saying, "I will not forgive you for threatening those whom I love." Takeshi staggered back with the Hyugas. "I can offer you money, power, position, opportunity, anything that you desire, you can have it," Takeshi screamed. After bending his head, Naruto raised it once more with his Sharingan in motion. "No deal," he grinned and said. After vanishing, Naruto stabbed the cage in the shoulder with his blade. Naruto pulled out the blade and slashed upward for the cage's head as he screamed. The blade caught the Kagekige's hat as he dodged. The figure slid back, the blade barely decapitating his head. Orochimaru glared at Naruto as he stood there. The crowd, which by this point was still backing away, gasped. Orochimaru was the treacherous third Sannin of Konoha. "So, you found out who I am. Aren't you a smart boy, Naruto-kun?" Orochimaru said, grinning painedly. With a faint smirk, Naruto said, "You are always ready, Orochimaru. You barely avoided my killing blow. Indeed, however, there is one thing you do not understand about this jutsu," Orochimaru replied. Naruto gave him a fierce look. It was true that he knew very little, if anything, about jutsu. It had only surfaced a few days prior, and he had been working on it covertly. The outcome of his training and experiments was a number of severely damaged wooden poles. Orochimaru responded, "With this many people, the jutsu will disappear in a matter of seconds." As promised, the jutsu vanished a few seconds later. Naruto was on his knees, panting heavily, and everyone was back where they had been. The Kyuubi had noticed that he was severely depleted of chakra and had pulled him out of the jutsu. He might have perished if he hadn't. Orochimaru gave the signal right away, and the assault started. The civilians were slaughtered by sound ninjas that suddenly emerged from them. They encountered leaf ninjas who fought them. Sarutobi and Orochimaru were surrounded by a barrier erected by Orochimaru's personal bodyguard. There was anarchy. Breathing heavily, Neji had approached Naruto's location. Neji's hand clenched back and then into a fist. This was the individual who caused him to bleed horribly, cut his hair, and broke his nose. Neji was considering killing Naruto right then and there because his body hurt from Naruto's blows. Naruto started by saying, "I understand your pain of losing your parents." Neji took a small step back, startled. "You lost your father and mother, as I have lost mine. However, this does not give you the right to become the self-righteous person you have become. Would your parents be proud of you?" said Naruto, lifting his head. He appeared somewhat normal, albeit a little pale. As a trickle of blood escaped, Neji cupped his nose and said, "Ama. I see the pain in your eyes. Open yourself to people who want to be your friend so they will guide you. Your cousin Hinata, she is willing to forgive you and become your friend, if you only let her. I would become your friend, if you let me. You do not believe in the destiny bullcrap you spew out. It is a mask, underneath that mask is a lonely and grief-stricken boy," said Naruto. Neji appeared dejected before standing up. Finally, with a tear in his eye, he said, "Yui, wheat, you were right." Before rushing off to get himself bandaged, Neji muttered, "Whn this is overha oi would loikea frus to become friends. When this is over, I would like first to become friends." Before a figure hurried to his side, Naruto gave a small smile. "Naruto-kun, are you okay?" Hinata frantically inquired. Whatever the battle was, Naruto turned and gazed into his girlfriend's beautiful eyes. "I'm fine, Hinata-chan. I'm just a little tired, my dearest," Naruto said gently as he reached up and stroked her chin. Then Hinata spun around, gazing at a sound ninja who was attempting to ambush them. The male ninja grinned and said, "I will make your death quick and painless if you don't struggle, little girl." Prior to using her Byakugan, Hinata's eyes gleamed with assurance. Hinata shouted, "I will definitely defeat you." The sand ninjas broke out outside, attacking the walls. A huge three-headed snake that had been summoned headed for the walls. Konoha, however, was ready. After Kunai and Shuriken destroyed the first wave of sand ninjas, a sizable contingent of Anbu and Junins emerged on the walls. A giant frog landed and crushed the three-headed snake's body beneath him. The frog's blade severed one of the snake's heads, and the body vanished in a thick cloud of smoke. Despite being outnumbered, the sound ninjas inside the arena were being massacred and fought valiantly. Even the treacherous Hyuga rose up and fought to protect their house. Then, in a flurry of leaves on the arena floor, came Kakashi and Sasuke. Kakashi glanced around. He said, "Something I miss." When Sasuke looked back, he saw Hinata fighting a sound ninja, sending the girl flying backwards after the ninja kicked her in the abdomen. Then Naruto showed up beside her, snatching her firmly in his arms as they glided across the floor. Naruto then leapt forward and turned on his foot. Naruto yelled, "Fly!" as Hinata flew in the direction of the ninja, their arms in monkey grip. Fading away with the noises of combat, Sasuke was only able to scowl before turning away as Hinata slid beneath his legs and used a leg sweep and a chakra-infused palm to trip him to the ground. He died at once. He was a little envious when Naruto, despite his weariness, grinned broadly at his girlfriend, who returned the smile. They would feel nothing right now because they were on adrenaline, but the pain of killing would return later. After looking up, Sasuke made the decision to enter the battle. He dashed to the wall, climbed it, and rushed into the bleachers. Observing Gaara and his siblings fleeing later in the rounds after they were unable to murder Shikamaru and the other players. Instead of pursuing, the remaining participants continued to assist in defending the civilians. Sasuke, sensing glory, smiled and trailed behind them. He would definitely demonstrate his superior strength to Naruto. Kakashi had already entered the battle and was competing against Metagai, the vivacious Junin who was having a good time fighting and tallying the number of enemies he had defeated. And Kakashi was barely winning. Orochimaru and the Sandaime Hokage finally faced each other upwards, and the purple barrier that surrounded them did so for the last time. Gaara, half transformed, screamed, "Come Sasuke! Mother screams for your blood!" Panting, Sasuke hid behind a big tree trunk. He had minor wounds all over, and blood was dripping onto the branch he was standing on. When he looked outside, he saw Gaara looking around before a black eye peered at him and an evil smile spread across her face. Sasuke leapt as his Shukaku feet arm swung, slamming through the trunk as it did so. Gazing intently at Gaara, Sasuke landed above on a different tree's branch. "I've run out of chakra. I only have one choice," Sasuke thought. He thus consented to the cursed seal's will. Sasuke felt a surge of power and a sense of life. Sasuke whispered, the Uchiha are the elite, for a reason. Using his left hand to hold his arm's elbow, he dropped his right arm and formed multiple hand seals. Sasuke screamed, "Chidori," and fled from the branch. He moved swiftly, barely ducking to avoid the first arm swing. With victory in his eyes, he leapt into the air and approached Gaara. Then his chakra stopped working. What? After Sasuke's eyes widened, Gaara's arm struck him forcefully, sending him crashing into a distant tree trunk. Knowing that he had a fractured arm and at least 2 broken ribs, Sasuke choked out blood. Everything was a huge blur, and he could hardly see anything. Sasuke muttered, "Kuso," before collapsing, unconscious. "Naruto, Hinata, go after Sasuke," was Kakashi's shout as he leapt down to the two. The 3 of them chased after them, calling forth Pakun, while Kakashi remained to assist in defending the populace. Sound and Sand were losing the battle. A number of Sound and Sand nin who had dropped their disguises had been killed immediately after intelligence reported an attack. In order to prevent the invading force from reaching Konoha, Anbu was out in full force. Outside of Konohagakure, Sound nin were preparing a summon to break through the Great Walls. As soon as they started the summoning ritual, they were massacred, sending Hunter nin flying through. Sound nin and Sand nin launched fierce attacks on the walls, but they were repulsed with significant losses. Hiro, the Sound nin, gazed at the massive walls and the massive corpses that were resting next to them. Nin ran up with a sound. The Sound nin declared, "We cannot break through the walls to help Lord Orochimaru." Hiro saw the Hunter nin who had killed his summoners swiftly climb the wall and join the group of forces at the top. He also cursed. "Charge!" he exclaimed. The ninjas of Sound and Sand then charged in the direction of the wall. Only a few defenders were hurt or killed as the attacker was ruthlessly defeated by the defenders using shuriken, kunai, and jutsu. With the purple shield barrier swiftly established by Sound 4, Orochimaru stood facing the Sandaime Hokage. Outside, an Anbu team stood helpless after making every effort to contact the Hokage. The Sandaime Hokage muttered, "Orochimaru, you will die here. My personal bodyguards have this place surrounded. You have no help here," Orochimaru replied. With clenched teeth, the Sandaime Hokage called forth his cherished monkey. Enma said, "I am here to serve you, prior to." Orochimaru looked at the wound from his katana. He was unable to feel his left arm because the foolish brat had severed the nerves and sliced through the tendons. The professor inquired, "Is your arm bothering you?" Orochimaru gave him a confident smile. Orochimaru grinned and said, "You are old sensei. Your ways are over, my ways are now." The Sandaime Hokage retorted, "And you underestimate your old sensei. You assumed I did not have help." Orochimaru's expression abruptly changed to one of horror and shock, and as Jiraiya's Rasengan ripped through his right arm, his only functional arm, he let out a scream. Jiraiya landed next to the professor, clutching his jaw where the foot had struck it, after Orochimaru kicked him away with a backheel. Orochimaru screamed, "You hid here, Jiraiya. You coward," out loud. Jiraiya gave him a sardonic glance, but his eyes were obviously filled with rage. There was the lethal Sannin in place of the pervert. "You're still the same, managing to dodge that death strike. You were always the best of us 3. But now you must die," came Jiraiya's measured response. However, the barrier was later removed by the Sound 4, and Kabuto showed up beside Orochimaru. Standing outside, the Anbu members charge in. As the Sound 4 touched down next to Orochimaru, Kabuto declared, "The battle is lost." Anger twisted Orochimaru's face, and he swung his chakra at the Anbu team. The Sound 4 kicked them away after they paused briefly at this attack. Before the Sound 4 hurled poisonous gas and smoke bombs covered in chakra onto the roof and fled, Orochimaru spit out, "This is not over." On the roof, the Sandaime and the Sannin gazed at the ninjas who were still engaged in combat. A leaf ninja stopped a sand ninja that was running to the right. After making a wild swing with his kunai, he fled in the opposite direction. His head snapped back as Guy's foot met him halfway. He yelled, 22. With a thumbs up, Kakashi started to perspire. Damn it, beaten, he thought. Hiruzen, the Sarutobi, looked at Jiraiya. I'm kind of glad I didn't have to fight him. I'm too old for this, and I used all my chakra yesterday training my grandson, said Hiruzen. Jiraiya smiled at Hokage, his beloved. I never thought you would say you were old. If you got worn out training your grandson, I'm glad you convinced me to stay around, Jiraiya replied. The Hokage gave a snort. These old bones of mine could still give you a run for your money, Jiraiya-chan, and probably beat you back to your mummy, said the Hokage. They had won the Battle of Konoha, with only a small number of their own lives lost. They had defeated the invasion of Sound and Sand. Simultaneously with the arena attack, a number of ninjas tried to call forth a huge three-headed snake. They were all killed by a group of Anbu assassins before they could complete it. As a result, Konoha had the advantage with the wall since the Sound and Sand could not penetrate it. Numerous Sound and Sand ninjas perished before they could even reach the walls. Gaara gleefully laughed. The Uchiha would perish. Shukaku started to gleefully sing about the deliciousness of red blood in his mind. Mother will be fulfilled, he exclaimed with joy. Then, as kunai with explosive tags were flung at him, Gaara lifted his arm. He lifted his arm to protect his face from the kunai, which exploded instantly. As he lowered his arm, he saw Hinata and Naruto standing there, with a Naruto clone removing Sasuke. Naruto's clone transported him to a location far from the destructive Shukaku after Sasuke was vanquished. Gaara cried out, "Come Uchiha! Your blood shall quench my thirst." Naruto looked at Hinata, who gave him a confident nod. Naruto stood there, getting ready to move swiftly, then grimacing in agony as Hinata took off to the left. What the hell? Naruto thought. The blade works indefinitely. It severely strains the coils of your chakras and body. Fighting Gaara won't help you defeat him, the Kyuubi declared. How is your chakra doing? Naruto inquired. As it is, your chakra coils are under stress. Giving you chakra would probably cause an internal explosion that would be lethal, if not fatal. It is not possible to use my chakra, the Kyuubi retorted. Naruto cursed. He looked at Hinata, and she looked back at him. After giving her a nod, Naruto leapt to his right and threw a kunai. He roared in anticipation as Gaara's gaze fell upon him. Naruto was standing on a tree branch when his demonic arm struck it. Gaara's big arm blocked Naruto's next volley of kunai, which he had thrown at her eye. Naruto gritted his teeth in agony and pushed off once more, this time with a wave of shuriken. Hinata swiftly approached Gaara's head as Naruto offered a distraction. Shukaku would return to his body if she could hit his chakra coils. She observed Naruto leaping from tree to tree and diverting his attention with a variety of projectiles. Then Hinata noticed a gap. With his back turned, she jumped onto his back and pumped chakra into her feet. She made a determined, swift upward motion. Hinata! Naruto cried out. Then Hinata realized her error when she was slammed into a tree by an arm that was tightly gripping and squeezing her. The arm began to squeeze, and Hinata let out a cry of pain. Naruto shouted, "Hinata!" once more before turning to face Gaara. Then, with a sharp cough and blood streaming from his mouth, Naruto rolled over in agony. Gaara's hungry eyes shone brightly. Gaara's other arm encircled Naruto's ankles as he stood up straight, slamming him through a tree trunk. Naruto was slammed into the trunk and was helpless, like a limp doll. Gaara then gave him a downward joyride and forcefully slammed him into the ground. The majority of the damage was absorbed by Naruto's body because he was able to surround it with a chakra shield. He was tired, though. When Hinata saw Naruto's situation, she screamed at his lifeless body. "Naruto!" Gaara looked in her direction. "Having fun, aren't you?" Gaara then slammed Naruto's limp body with her other arm. A cry of agony. With tears in her eyes, Hinata muttered, "Stop." Gaara smiled. Once more, his arm slammed into Naruto. One more cry of agony. "Stop," Hinata uttered. With a cry of, "Stop," Hinata's chakra burst from each tenketsu, releasing her. Gaara turned to look at her. Byakugan activated. She stood emotionless with her hair pulled back from her face. Her gorgeous face was set in a grim, determined expression as she raised it. Gaara smiled. He yelled, "Come," and charged at her. Hinata hurried up the tree trunk she was standing on. The tree started to topple over as Gaara ran, her arm slamming into the trunk just below her. Hinata kept running before pushing away and throwing a wave of kunai with explosive tags at Gaara while spinning in the air. The kunai embedded itself in Gaara's body, causing his arms to move to a cross. Then they left. Gaara swung wildly at Hinata and let out a cry of rage. He roared in rage as it just missed. With determined eyes, Hinata landed on a branch. Then she felt Gaara's arm descend on her. Letting his hand go, she leapt forward and started the perilous ascent up his arm. Before attempting to flick her upwards with his attached arm, Gaara's other arm came sailing overhead as she rolled. As his arm rose at the proper angle, Hinata held on with her feet and released her grip, allowing momentum to carry her forward. With her arm poised to send chakra into Gaara's head, she soared through the air. Gaara's tail slammed into her while she was so close. With a cry, she took off and crashed into a tree trunk with force. She screamed in agony as she sank into the tree trunk, causing the tree to tremble. Just as Gaara's fist slammed where her body would be, she barely managed to pull herself out and fell. Staring at the half-Shukaku-ed Gaara, she fell to the ground. The hysterical words, "Time to die," came out of Gaara. He put his hands together and muttered, "Forced sleep no jutsu." Gaara instantly changed into a full Shukaku, who joyfully cackled. He yelled, "I'm free," before its eyes fixed on Hinata, who was panting on the ground. As he charged at her, Shukaku yelled, "I yearn for your blood." After avoiding the tail's swing, Hinata threw multiple kunai. Hinata sprinted, hiding behind a tree trunk and rolling close to it. As Shukaku picked up the tree, she rolled away. Catch! When Shukaku threw the tree, the ground around Hinata's location was slammed hard. After being flung back, Hinata's body slid 30 meters before colliding with a tree. Hinata dismissed the despair with a shake of her head. "No, Naruto-kun believes in me. I believe in myself," she yelled. After charging at Shukaku, Hinata slid beneath his legs and inserted a kunai, a bundle of explosive nodessa, into his buttocks. Pulling out 2 kunai as she slid, she cut Shukaku's crotch and threw them into the kunai that had explosive notes already stuck in his buttocks. Shukaku turned and chuckled when he saw Hinata. As the explosive tags detonated, Shukaku abruptly stopped and screamed. Its tail and both arms moved in the direction of its buttocks. Hinata saw her opportunity. She pumped as much chakra as she could into her legs and pushed off it as she ran toward the closest tree trunk, where Gaara was sleeping, and made her way to Shukaku's face. She reached halfway but began to slow down, much to her dismay. A smile spread across Shukaku's twisted face of pain. Then she sensed him. Bloody and worn out, Naruto clutched her hand in his white clothes, which were torn and turned black and brown with the dirt. Before he lifted her back up, she caught a glimpse of Naruto's smirk. "Go," he muttered as he collapsed back to the floor. With the extra momentum, Hinata flew, and Shukaku's left arm just missed them. Hinata poured as much chakra into her hand as she could and slammed a huge slap across Gaara's face. "Asshole," she yelled angrily. As Shukaku drained back into Gaara's body, Hinata smiled slightly and Gaara's eyes opened in surprise. The protest came softly, "No." Hinata plummeted down, worn out. Physically at the edge of her pain threshold, she battled through her previous physical fatigue to defeat him after putting up a fierce fight against the invading ninjas. She was completely exhausted and had no more energy. She heard a cry of, "Hinata," and felt herself fall hard into Naruto's arms. Naruto was too worn out to support her when she fell on top of him. Hinata raised her head to face Naruto, who had a weary yet pleased expression on his face. He muttered, "You did great, Hinata-chan." She moved her head closer to Naruto's and whispered, "I won." Naruto closed his eyes in anticipation, knowing what was about to happen. When he heard a sigh, Hinata fell asleep and sagged to the side. Naruto turned to Gaara's limp form after letting out a small groan of disappointment. Gaara questioned, "How was she so strong?" "Love. She loves me, and she fights for those she finds precious to her," replied Naruto. "You can find strength from fighting for others," replied Gaara. Naruto grinned. "Yes, your friends are your precious people. I hope one day you will learn this lesson, Gaara, that you can only become truly strong when you fight for whom you hold precious," stated Naruto. Gaara gave him a look. Gaara remarked, "I will keep these words in mind." Uchiha Naruto. Beside them, his siblings touched down. They looked at Hinata and Naruto. Gaara said, "Leave them, let us go, please." Despite their shocked expressions, Temari and Kankuro nodded. Temari said, "Let's go, Gaara," and lifted him out of the clearing. Hinata was sound asleep when Naruto sagged back. He grinned before embracing her and falling asleep right away. When Kakashi and a few other people arrived an hour later, they were greeted with a smile upon seeing Naruto and Hinata snuggled together, sound asleep. Earlier, Sasuke had been taken to the hospital after being discovered with broken ribs. The sand and sound invasion had a positive outcome. Reports of ninjas and civilian casualties were minimal. The sand followed sound ninja, who took the brunt of the losses. The village hidden in the sand pleaded for pity after losing their cage. With severe consequences, Hiruzen, a man of peace, was accepted. Then it was time for the funeral. Many ninjas were cooped up in the hospital and did not attend. While lying in their beds, Naruto, Hinata, and Sasuke observed the pouring rain. They didn't say much because that would have to wait for a better day. Many would lament the loss of loved ones, but very few would cry. After a passionate speech by the Hokage, it was over. The Sandaime Hokage was grinning at them as they stood on the Hokage Tower's balcony. Days had passed since the attack, and the reconstruction was complete. Sarutobi made the decision to announce the results of the Chunin exams, or his own selection of the candidates for promotion. Facing the Hokage, a line of Konoha genins who had taken the Chunin exams formed. People flocked to the streets below to watch the procession. Jiraiya was in the center of 4 Anbu captains who were standing behind the Hokage. The day was bright and clear, and birds were soaring overhead. Despite the slight breeze, nobody spoke as they watched the procession. You have all represented Konohagakure well, and although most of you did not make Chunin, you have fought well and hard in defending Konoha. And for that, we acknowledge you, the Hokage said. The audience applauded and cheered. For silence, the Hokage held up his hand. The atmosphere was enhanced by the slight increase in wind, which caused clothing to ruffle and trees to rustle. The Hokage said, I will now present the recipients to those who have joined our ranks as Chunin. Speculating about who would and wouldn't make it, people watched. There were rumors about who would advance or how many would be promoted. While holding hands, Naruto and Hinata exchanged a smile. Hinata winked back when Naruto gave her a playful shove. Naruto claimed that wearing all white would have made him stand out too much as a ninja, so he had gone back to his previous appearance. They were proud of each other and themselves, even if they didn't get promoted. They all turned to face the Hokage when he coughed, bringing them all back to the present. For his fine display of leadership on the battlefield, and also through his knowledge and skill during his participation of the exams, Shikamaru is awarded a Chunin vest, stated the Sandaime Hokage. Shikamaru moaned as there was cheering and applause. His father moaned from the floor as well, and their tearful mother sobbed as she expressed her pride in her son. How troublesome, was mumbled by both male Naras as Shikamaru walked toward the Hokage, dragging his feet despite his smile. He accepted the Chunin vest, put it on, and waved haltingly at the throng. Then he made his way back to the queue. The next participant is awarded a Chunin vest for her efforts on the battlefield to defend Konohagakure, and with the aid of a fellow leaf shinobi to defeat Sabaku no Gaara when he was a great threat to Konoha. The recipient of the Chunin vest, Hyuga Hinata, stated the Hokage. As a very flushed and red Hinata stepped forward to accept her Chunin vest, there was cheering once more. Naruto smiled and gave his girlfriend a hearty cheer. She bowed to the Hokage and accepted her Chunin vest, blushing. She also waved hesitantly as she walked back, then gave Naruto a radiant smile. Naruto just grinned. Finally, the last participant is awarded a Chunin vest, not only for his skill shown during the Chunin exams, but his attack to severely cripple Orochimaru, a huge threat to our village, and also aiding Hyuga Hinata in the defeat of Sabaku no Gaara. The recipient of the Chunin vest, Uchiha Naruto, was named the Hokage. The ninjas cheered enthusiastically, and the civilians gave a fair amount of applause. They were gradually coming to terms with the fact that Naruto was no longer the demon brat. They'd have to be more tolerant of him because he was also a Uchiha. Naruto now had a lot of power because he was one of the 2 remaining Uchiha in Konoha. With the vest in hand, Naruto strode forward and smiled at the elderly Hokage, who returned the smile. Hinata clapped joyfully behind him, her face lit up with a smile. A shout of, "Oi brat! Good job!" occurred. When Naruto looked up, he saw Zabuza smiling and Haku beside him. Despite wearing a Konoha Hitai around his forehead, Zabuza had the same appearance. When Haku and he visited the Sound and Sand ninjas in the hospital, Naruto claimed to have enjoyed the good fight with them and to have caught a glimpse of him on the battlefield. The Hokage grinned as Naruto made his way back to the line. "That is all. Congratulate your newest Chunins," he yelled. They all applauded, and Naruto and Hinata grinned at each other. However, Uchiha Sasuke, a genin who hadn't bothered to attend the event, was absent. Sasuke detested Naruto and Hinata for robbing him of his glory, and he was aware that he would not be given a Chunin vest. He observed from a distance while sitting on a rooftop. He therefore missed the news that Naruto was a Uchiha. Before he vanished to ruminate, he sat there in lonely silence. For the final time, Team 7 got back together. Kakashi ruffled the heads of Hinata and Naruto while grinning. Kakashi turned his eye into an upside-down U and said, You both did very well, I am very proud of you. Both Hinata and Naruto smiled. Sakura appeared dejected, but Kakashi touched her shoulder. Sakura, this was a learning experience for you. You now know how hard you have to work to make Chunin, but I'm sure you'll get there, replied Kakashi. Hinata approached Sakura after she smiled. Happily, Hinata declared, we'll always be Team 7. Sakura gave a pitiful smile. Many thanks, she said. This calls for a celebration. Since Naruto and Hinata will be much more busy in the future, this will be one of the few times we can gather together, stated Kakashi. Naruto gave a nod. Naruto replied, yeah, and you're paying. Kakashi began to perspire. No ramen, Kakashi stipulated. Members nodded and congratulated Hinata as she entered the Hyuga complex. She nodded to them and smiled back. Neji was blocking her path and staring at her when she stopped. Neji, Hinata started. I must ask for your pardon, Hinata-sama, Neji said, collapsing to a bow on the hardwood floor. Hinata's eyes grew wide with shock and surprise. She hurried to his side and stepped forward. Hinata said, Neji-ni-san, what has gotten into you? I betrayed you, and Uncle Hiyashi, I betrayed you all, grieved Neji. It's okay, I forgive you. We all make mistakes, and I'm sure you'll have much suffering to come before you will be forgiven by the main branch family, replied Hinata. Neji gave her a stupid nod before turning to face her. Thank you for your forgiveness, Hinata-sama. I will accept my punishment, Neji said, bowing to her before leaving. Neji, Hinata exclaimed. He turned with a perplexed expression. Hinata said, never, don't bow to me or call me Sama. Neji grinned. As you wish, he said, turning to leave. A servant approached Hinata with a small bob as she was making her way down the hall to her room. The female servant hurriedly said, your father wants to see you in his study, Hinata-sama. With a nod and a smile, Hinata headed for the study. She wondered what her father wanted, and she approached other Hyuga members in the hallways to greet them and offer congratulations. Knowing that her father might normally be engaged in a task requiring a great deal of focus, she approached the door and knocked softly. Come in, her father said. She opened the door and shut it after herself. Then she walked over to his desk and settled herself on a cushion. Pen and paper at work, her father was working on a document. He set them aside and grinned at her. Hiyashi said, my daughter, you have my utmost admiration. After blinking in surprise, Hinata returned the smile. She wasn't going to question it now, but she hadn't seen this side of her father in years. Thank you, father, she said with joy. I have to apologize, Hinata, for how I have treated you after your mother's death. Many circumstances have happened, and I didn't realize how badly I was treating you. Hinata, can you forgive this foolish and old man? Hiyashi candidly asked her. With a smile, Hinata got to her feet. Her father got up and embraced her as she walked around the table. She said, Papa, there is nothing to forgive. With a smile, Hiyashi embraced her. When I saw you up there on that balcony receiving the Chunin vest, I was so proud of you. Never doubt that anymore, my dear daughter, replied Hiyashi. Hinata whispered, I won't, father. Outside, Hanabi used her Byakugan to look inward before scowling jealously and walking away. Jiraiya and the Hokage sat in the office. Jiraiya, we must protect Naruto. We know that Danzo is aware of his heritage now, and will stop at nothing to make him a weapon, replied Hiruzen. Jiraiya paced around, frowning. We cannot hide him from Danzo. There's no place we can hide him effectively, and leaving him out in the open will not work. My networks here say that Danzo is entrenched in the Anbu, and in various other places. He wields a lot of power and influence, Jiraiya stated. Then Hiruzen grinned and clapped his hands. Jiraiya paused and turned to face Hiruzen. As Hiruzen put it, we put him in the Anbu. Anbu, didn't I just say that Danzo has spies entrenched in the Anbu? Replied Jiraiya. Yes, but we can keep him a secret. You know that only the captains and the commander know the identities of their Anbu members. The commander I know and trust, he has always been loyal and brought to my attention Danzo and his root faction. The captain, we'll put him with someone we know isn't in Danzo's faction nor his team. Danzo will not know the better, as the porcelain mask will hide him, Hiruzen replied. Jiraiya nodded his head and scowled. However, Jiraiya stated, I do have one request though. What's that? Hiruzen inquired. A smile that suggested Jiraiya was working on something appeared on her face. Hiruzen gave him a scowl. He said, let me train the boy. It made sense to Hiruzen, who nodded in agreement. So you are going to teach Minato's legacy then? You are sure of this? Replied Hiruzen. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and this is one way of repaying them, said Jiraiya. We have an agreement then, Jiraiya, but one question remains to be answered, Hiruzen replied. And what would that be, Almighty Hokage? Jiraiya inquired, looking interestedly. How would you feel to be Hokage? Birds fled in fear as the Hokage tower erupted in a, what? Shout. Uchiha Naruto, the figure in the long black robe, inquired. Naruto identified him as the commander with the unique pattern, and markings on his mask indicated that he was a high-ranking Anbu. Naruto turned, his face and body smeared with dirt and dripping sweat from his workout. Hi, Naruto said. After looking around, the Anbu figure handed him a scroll. Please read this as soon as you can, in a private area. I will be in contact with you soon, said the member of the Anbu. The Anbu member vanished as Naruto nodded. He went to his belongings and stuffed them into his backpack before using a towel to wipe away the perspiration. He took a deep breath and walked slowly back to Konoha, stopping briefly to eat 20 bowls of ramen. Naruto frowned as he gazed at the scroll. To confirm its contents, it did, however, bear the official seal of the Hokage. I wonder what it is, Naruto pondered, because it was also given by an Anbu member. The Kyuubi said, just open the damn thing. Naruto retorted, I was getting to it, furball. Naruto opened it. To Naruto Uchiha, as soon as you have finished reading this scroll, you must destroy it. Never, ever keep this scroll anywhere because it could jeopardize Konoha as a whole. When you feel you are at least 15, you are formally invited to join the ranks of Anbu on probation, where you will receive instruction and training from Anbu instructors before taking an exam. You will become a full member of Anbu and be eligible to wear the porcelain mask if you pass the Anbu exam. Meet an emissary atop the Hokage monument at precisely midnight tonight if you accept this offer. You won't be contacted again if you say no. Once more, you need to destroy this document as soon as you're done. This scroll has a unique seal that will burn without leaving any residue if a small amount of chakra is added. We cannot allow outsiders to compromise the Anbu, so if you do not destroy this document, you will be dealt with. When Naruto saw the Hokages and the Anbu head commander's handwritten signatures, his eyes widened. Then Naruto smiled. I intend to become an Anbu. He pondered. When Naruto pumped chakra into the scroll, it broke apart, and he smiled broadly. He thought, I'll look so badass wearing a porcelain mask. The Hokage's office doors were opened by the Anbu commander. They showed up, nodded, and left, gesturing for the Anbu guards who were hidden to vanish. They were only supposed to leave the Hokage in extremely secretive situations. Hiruzen gestured to the Anbu commander while casting 2 jutsus that blocked sight and sound from the office. Itachi-kun, you can now remove your mask, the Hokage said. The Uchiha traitor smiled at them as the figure lifted the mask. He uttered the words, Hokage-sama, Jiraiya-sama. Hiruzen inquired, was the letter delivered? Itachi said, hi, I think he will accept, with a small smile on his face as he considered Naruto's happy expression. Excellent. It has been some time since you have been in Konoha. Although as Anbu commander, sometimes to be rarely seen is a good thing, makes people think you are watching. Is Kisame harder to get by nowadays? Replied Jiraiya. Indeed, his surveillance over me has increased. He may suspect a bit, but not much from what I see. We have been observing Naruto for some time. Kisame wishes to move quickly against him. As for Zetsu, he appears now and then, but I know he is afar off helping the other Akatsuki members to prepare, stated Itachi. I still find it ironic, one of the most hated figures in Konohagakure history, the Anbu commander, said Jiraiya. Itachi gave Jiraiya a smile. And you have yourself a little apprentice in Naruto. He already is a fine ninja, stated Itachi. Indeed he is, I was hoping at some point you could pop by and help me when I take him on a training trip, replied Jiraiya. Indeed, I will certainly try to slip Akatsuki's guards. You wish for him to surpass his father and mother then? Replied Itachi. Jiraiya answered, yes, I owe it to Minato and Kushina. And I hear you are retiring from Hokage. Become an old man now Itachi chuckled. Hiruzen smiled. Despite everything that had happened to him, Itachi remained faithful to Konoha. I just want to sit back and relax, and take care of my grandchildren, replied Hiruzen. I've had enough of war and paperwork. Konohamaru wants to become a great ninja. Retirement will allow me to help him improve by spending time with him. Then we shall find Sunade then. Should I dispatch my Anbu teams? Replied Itachi. No, she will come to us, Hiruzen said, with a mischievous gleam in his eye. The mischievous expression in the Hokage's eyes made Jiraiya and Itachi smile. With that expression in their Hokage's eyes, they knew at once that she would return. Money and alcohol were irresistible to Sunade, the famous sucker, especially if the alcohol was inexpensive. As a result, a fantastic festival with enormous gambling jackpots and inexpensive sake was scheduled to take place in Konoha in 3 days. The public would interpret the celebration as honoring the deceased and celebrating a significant victory, even though it was actually an elaborate hoax intended to entice Senju Tsunade back to Konoha. And they would leap when Tsunade returned. The Gondime Hokage would be her successor. Thus began the implementation of the Hokage and Jiraiya's plan. Gaki! Exclaimed Jiraiya. Before one Naruto emerged, 200 turned toward Jiraiya. Naruto's response was, Ero Sennin. Don't call me that, Jiraiya yelled. Ero Sennin was chanted by the whole Naruto ensemble. Anyway, you'll be coming with me on a mission, to find the great Senju Tsunade, one of the 3 Sannin, Jiraiya replied. Naruto let out a sigh. Naruto mumbled to himself, why must I be stuck with a pervert? Before he became serious, Jiraiya started to perspire. Naruto, Jiraiya said. Naruto turned to face him with icy steel eyes and a serious expression as well. Don't use unlimited blade works, only as a last resort, Jiraiya said. Naruto gave a nod of agreement. I read the scroll that my mother gave me. I didn't know how much chakra it really took, nor the strain it puts on my body. I understand now, I will only use it as a last resort, stated Naruto. Jiraiya nodded, pleased that he had heeded his counsel. He would surpass his father and become a formidable ninja who could change the outcome of any conflict if he could keep giving the boy wise counsel and assist him in utilizing his drive to work hard. I'm surprised you even learnt the move, it was hard for your mother to even create, even with help from your father, Jiraiya replied. Naruto smiled. What can I say, I have good genes, and a lot of help, replied Naruto. Jiraiya chuckled. There was a lot of Minato in him, he thought. Given that Minato was always well liked by the women, Jiraiya thought, he'll be a lady killer in the future. Jiraiya questioned, so Naruto, do you know the Rasengan? Naruto gave a head nod. Jiraiya looked at him in complete shock. Jiraiya questioned, how the crap do you know the Rasengan? After giving him a dumbfounded look, Naruto gestured to his stomach. Jiraiya turned white. Jiraiya questioned, that furball taught you the Rasengan? No, I taught myself didn't I, Naruto said ominously. Jiraiya, who was clearly getting happier, requested to see the scroll. He questioned, do you know how it works? Roughly, started Naruto. The scrolls only give out techniques, knowledge and advice when it feels I am ready to handle it. I haven't looked at it recently however. I think my mother's scroll only gave me unlimited blade works because it was to help me learn, to teach me a lesson. I really shouldn't have used it at all, but perhaps Kami has had a say in it, to prevent a larger amount of damage to Konoha by having me injure Orochimaru with it, stated Naruto. Jiraiya scowled and then shrugged. I suppose that makes sense, but anyway, I'll show you the Rasengan, Jiraiya replied. A blue ball of chakra swirled around Jiraiya's hand as he raised it. He declared, this is the Rasengan, and then used it to destroy a nearby tree. Naruto murmured ominously, I already know that. Jiraiya gave a shrug. Jiraiya frowned and said, I'll teach you something else, but it'll be much easier for you to master with the Sharingan. I won't use it. Sharingan is perfect for fights, but not for training. Because when you rely on just your Sharingan to learn jutsu, you never get a feel for it. You don't realize just how much chakra it takes, or how much chakra to use to make it bigger or smaller. Plus, it'll increase my already large chakra reserves, laughed Naruto. Smart kid, Naruto remarked. Good genes, as I mentioned. Jiraiya smiled. In addition to the fact that he had a lot of potential, he was beginning to like this kid more and more. He would make the child a skilled ninja if he could have him for 2 years. However, the Hokage had already agreed that he would have him for 2 years. Jiraiya inquired, how is your chakra control then? I got Hyuga Hiyashi-sama to teach me advanced chakra control techniques, stated Naruto. Jiraiya's eyebrows went up in genuine surprise. Alright, the Gaki had Hiyashi teach him. Jiraiya remarked, it's difficult to even move the man when he's set on something. You may have large stores of chakra, but chakra control is always important. Fighting for hours with ninjutsu is something very few people can do, but by maximizing your efficiency with your chakra, you can become twice as deadly. An extra fireball jutsu in your chakra stores from being able to reduce the amount of wastage from your chakra is better than none at all, Jiraiya said. Naruto consented, understanding that Jiraiya was a fountain of knowledge and counsel when taken seriously. When he was serious, and that was very seldom. Naruto grinned wryly and remarked, Hiyashi-sama taught me that as well, although his explanation was much more sophisticated. Jiraiya returned the smile. Hiyashi always was one for explaining things in a higher class manner. His act doesn't fool me though, Jiraiya replied. Naruto remarked, I'm not fooled by his act either. MMHHH, can I use you and your girlfriend as research? Ero Sennin, I vowed never to return. I got out of there a long time ago. I severed my relationship and left with my niece. Even though I vowed in my heart never to go back, it is calling to me now. I drink and gamble to get away from my past because I can't handle it. I dare not confront it. I have continued to run as a result. However, I am returning because I am unable to escape the demons of my past. I keep running, but it seems like I'm not getting anywhere. I'm Senju Sunade, and I long for the suffering and loss of more than 50 years. Even though I don't want to return, the money is beckoning. On training ground 51, there were two figures. Another stood back, observing, while the first stood in the middle of this expansive training area. Hinata stood quietly, her fingers intertwined in a focused tangle. She spun 10 Fuma Shuriken around herself, and Naruto, who was nearby, proudly observed. In the days that he had taught her, she had advanced so far, starting with 1 Shuriken and working her way up to 10. After just 1 week of practice, she was now 10. Naruto thought, Hinata-chan, you can do it. After working diligently together, Naruto taught Hinata how to use his Fuma Shuriken move against Kiba during the tests. As Hinata focused, sweat trickled down her brow. Since ninja wire would actually need to pass through the body in order to rotate in a sphere, this move was theoretically impossible. But Naruto had gotten around it by creating a unique ninja wire that, when chakra was pumped into it, transformed into pure chakra and could travel through the body unharmed. Hinata's shuriken nicked her arm, causing her to hiss in agony. Naruto yelled, Hinata, concentrate. With a determined grit of her teeth, Hinata nodded. She was surrounded by a protective sphere of flying death as the shuriken grew faster and faster. By this point, Hinata's fingers were beginning to blur, and she lost control. Shuriken lost control of the wire, causing the projectiles to fly in all directions. A shuriken threatened to sever Naruto's head, so he ducked beneath it. Hinata hurried to meet him. Naruto-kun, I'm sorry, said Hinata, looking concerned. Putting a hand through his hair, Naruto stood up. Naruto grinned and said, almost Hinata-chan, you're almost there. Hinata's anxious look gave way to a disappointed one. She looked disappointedly at the ground and muttered, I'm sorry I couldn't do it. Gazing at her, Naruto raised her chin. He grinned and remarked, Hinata-chan, you've come a long way. Believe me, you're amazing. After blushing, Hinata left with Naruto to gather the strewn about shuriken. Naruto declined Hinata's offer of the 10 Fuma Shuriken. Hinata-chan, I want you to try again, but this time I'll be in front of you, said Naruto. Hinata opened her eyes wide. She exclaimed, what, you'll get hurt. Naruto gave a headshake. Naruto confidently remarked, I trust you, Hinata, and I know you can do this. I won't get hurt. Hinata nodded after glancing down at the shuriken. Standing just a few inches away, Naruto gazed directly into her eyes. After closing her eyes, she threw up the shuriken and immediately spun away with it. Her fingers sensed the tautness of the wire as the shuriken responded. The shuriken sphere accelerated as she whirled them. They were encircled by the shuriken, which was their own shield. Naruto grinned at Hinata when she opened her eyes. She smiled brightly in return. Naruto lifted her chin and whispered, you did it. Using one hand, he cupped her left cheek and gradually closed the distance. His intentions caused Hinata's eyes to widen. She leaned slowly in his direction. They moved slowly, gradually closing the distance between them. Her breath touched Naruto's face. She could sense the calm, peaceful aura he exuded surrounding her. Naruto didn't even flinch when the shuriken whizzed past them, circling near his head. With the sphere shielding them from everything, there was nothing but them. Their mouths were nearly in contact. Gaki. They were just millimeters away from making contact when they jerked back in surprise. Hinata's face flushed, and she abruptly halted the rotation. Naruto first appeared irritated before turning to face a smiling Jiraiya. Naruto yelled, "What?" with fury. Jiraiya gave him a smile. Jiraiya raised his eyebrows and said, "Oh, hello Hinata-chan. I see you two are getting rather busy." Hinata looked shyly at the ground as her face flushed bright red. When Jiraiya lifted his notebook with a smug smile and saw a couple who looked a lot like them in a tornado, ready to kiss, Naruto twitched. Before his Sharingan activated, Naruto said, "Arrow Sennin," slowly. "I am going to kill you," he said. Before taking off with Naruto right behind him, Jiraiya started to perspire. Over the horizon, Hinata observed the dust clouds dissipate. She scowled with dismay. Then she muttered, "Damn it." Interrupted again, she reflected. Her eyes widened as the seriousness of the situation struck. She recalled that Jiraiya was a writer at Smut who was regarded as a genius. In a panic, she fled after them, running faster than any Hyuga had ever run. As Hinata burned his research, Jiraiya gazed at her. Jiraiya exclaimed, "You didn't need to, my research. You interrupted us at a very important time." "What is it?" said Naruto. Jiraiya gave them a knowing smile. Jiraiya smirked and said, "What? Wanting to know your dearest Hinata's lips. You sly dog you." Hinata blushed, and Naruto's cheeks turned a little redder. "What is it?" Naruto emphasized. Jiraiya waved before vanishing in a cloud of smoke, saying, "As you know, the festival is tomorrow. Be ready at 9 a.m., we're going Hokage hunting." "Stupid. Blah," Naruto muttered as he kicked the floor. Then Naruto halted and turned to face Hinata, who gave him a curious look. Naruto threw caution to the wind and shrugged. With a deliberate gait, he approached Hinata and put his right arm around her lower back. With a hint of surprise in her voice, Hinata said, "Naruto-kun." Naruto's head tipped down as he slowly leaned forward. When Hinata realized what he was doing, she approached him cautiously. "No matter what," they thought resolutely. Above them a voice said, "Cute." They both blushed as they jumped back in surprise. When they looked up, they saw Kakashi reading a book while sitting on a nearby roof's balcony. Hinata smiled and said, "Kakashi-sensei." Kakashi inquired, "Yo, how are both of my little chunin going?" "Not bad, Kakashi-sensei. What's going to happen with Sakura as she's the only one who didn't pass," stated Naruto. Kakashi gave them a smile. "Sakura has shown brilliant potential in becoming a medic nin. I've diverted her to the hospital for training, as I know nothing about healing techniques," Kakashi grumbled. Hinata grinned. "That's good for Sakura-san. I'm glad she is able to find something she's good at," replied Hinata. "I've heard that you yourself are quite the little medic nin now," replied Kakashi. The compliment made Hinata smile. "Very simple stuff. Herbal cream, disinfection of wounds, and very minor cuts," replied Hinata. Impressed, Kakashi nodded and got to his feet. Kakashi waved and then vanished in a whirl of leaves, saying, "Well, I have a mission with Zabuza and Haku. I'll see you around." Both Hinata and Naruto sighed as they exchanged glances. Once more, the moment had been lost. Hinata noticed that it was 4 p.m. when she glanced at a nearby clock. "I've got to go. I have family training with father and Hanabi ni-chan," said Hinata. Naruto nodded and gave her a tender handshake. After giving him a joyful smile, Hinata leapt onto the roofs. Naruto muttered, "So cute," and turned to leave. Over a table, Sakura stood with a minor cut on a civilian patient who sat nearby and watched curiously. "Sakura, remember what I taught you. Concentrate on your chakra, and let it wash over your hands and out of your tenketsu points," said the medic nin who was standing nearby. Sakura scrunched her face up in concentration and nodded. She was delighted to see the cut gradually go away. At last, it vanished, and she gazed at the medic nin with joy. She exclaimed, "I did it." With delight, the middle-aged, brown-haired, spectacle-wearing medical ninja nodded. "Very good, Sakura. However, you need to practice more," she replied. Sakura gave a hearty nod. After thanking her, the patient left the room. Sakura gazed at her hands, which then clenched into fists. She was committed to improving and becoming stronger. She was the only member of the now-defunct Team 7 remaining after Naruto and Hinata had graduated. She now strives to work hard to succeed as a result of this and a constant shift in her mindset. She would put in a lot of effort in her own way, even though she wasn't as smart as Naruto or as adaptable or talented as Hinata. Sunade was standing a few kilometers away from Konoha, Shizune, holding Taunton. The gates gradually opened as they approached Konoha at a leisurely pace, and a sizable crowd began to slowly filter in, accompanied by numerous entrance guards serving as a policing unit and a show of force. There were two reasons for the festival. One goal was to draw tourists, who would then spend money on repairs after the sand and sound attack, boosting the local economy. The other was to demonstrate that they had not been weakened by the attack on Konoha. Many ninjas were away on missions to make money because they had lost a few good ones, but the losses weren't significant. The real goal was to entice Sunade out of hiding, but only to a few. One stone, two birds. With concern, Shizune questioned, "Are you sure about this, Sunade?" They both wore henge and disguises, and Sunade had a large sum of money in her pockets, the majority of which she had obtained illegally from different loan sharks and daimyos. While Shizune appeared to be a long-haired brunette, Sunade had the appearance of a young, red-headed woman in her 20s. Both dressed in brownish attire to blend in with the surroundings, and many wealthy people wore gaudy-colored robes. "I am certain, we're going in, winning some money and getting out straight away," Sunade replied. Shizune gave a nod, and they moved cautiously toward Konoha's gates. In the Hokage's office, Jiraiya stood beside Hiruzen, gazing into his crystal ball. The key element was secrecy, and the Anbu guards were gone. Sunade would sense it and return to hiding, so they didn't want a big commotion that she was back in Konoha. Jiraiya questioned, "Has she taken the bait?" In the crowd, Hiruzen identified two figures, one of whom was holding a pig. Jiraiya smiled. With a laugh, Jiraiya remarked, "She can't go anywhere without her beloved ton. Let her gamble for a bit, lower her guard, then it's up to you and Naruto to convince her," Hiruzen said. Jiraiya retorted, "I'm sure the Gaki will find some way to get her to stay." Sarutobi grinned, future Hokage written all over him. Jiraiya appeared beside Naruto as he got to his feet. Naruto said, "It's 9. What do you want me for?" He was told to go talk on the roofs by Jiraiya. Both of them leapt, landing on the roof out of sight and sound. "Naruto, I need you to come with me to several places. My old teammate Senju Sunade is here, and the Hokage and I believe that she should become the next Hokage," Jiraiya replied. Naruto appeared a little taken aback. Naruto remarked, "But Sunade left years ago." "Yes, but she's back. It's up to us to convince her to take on the mantle of Hokage," said Jiraiya. In one room sat a group of Hyuga elders. As proud men and women who had experienced the great ninja wars, they were all of the older generation. They were all former shinobi who had been in the area for a long time and had once been strong and proud. Despite their advanced age, they continued to occupy significant positions of authority. When another group of stupid elders tried to overrule the clan during the Chunin, this group of Hyuga used those foolish elders who would oppose their plans to restore the glory of the Hyuga. This group of Hyuga had survived the purge from the rest of the clan. Now that they were underground and out of sight, they would attack. Her posture was stiff and royal, but the elder's leader spoke in a croaky old voice. When she was younger, she was a prodigy among the Hyuga and a brilliant shinobi. Ingenious, cunning, and dangerous. You don't want to be enemies with them. Hyuga Chizu was her name. I have called this meeting because there are reports that the heiress, Hinata, is in a relationship with Uchiha Naruto, she stated. With that, the other 6 people in the room immediately erupted in protest. As an elder male said, "This is madness. The Sharingan is a stolen version of our Kekkei Genkei. This cannot be allowed to happen," Tomadori concurred. Another exclaimed, "We must not allow this to continue, this is an outrage to our ancestors." Midori added. Chizu held up her hand to silence them. "We must force the heiress to break away this abomination of a relationship. We cannot allow the blood of the Hyuga to be watered down," she said. Slowly and steadily, Ruuoni said, "The boy is carefully protected by the fool of a Hokage Hiruzen, as well as Jiraiya. So what must we do? We cannot threaten him, as he is one of the last 2 Uchiha. We must do something," Midori murmured. They gazed expectantly at Chizu as she smiled at them. "As we know, Hiashi cannot be in all places at once. He must not know of this arrangement that I will bring up. Hyuga Hinata must break up with Uchiha Naruto within a month, nor tell him or anyone else about this and to never associate with him again," stated Chizu. Ruuoni questioned, "How would we come about this?" "It is simple, Hinata is kind at heart. We threaten the 2 closest to her, Neji of the Branch family, and Hanabi, her sister. We will forcibly kill Neji, and brand Hanabi with the cursed seal should she refuse. She cannot refuse, her heart will not let her, declared Chizu, a smile on her face. The elders of the Hyuga smiled one by one. Yes, under their leadership, the Hyuga would return to its former splendor. Sunade had won a ton of money, and it was now 2 o'clock. She wore a frown while everyone was shocked by her winnings. This wasn't good. Shizune sat beside her, dollar signs gleaming in his eyes. Sunade drank sake while Taunton drank a small bowl of milk while they sat in a bar booth. Neither had been recognized thus far, and both were still wearing their disguises. Sunade, you're winning. Maybe your luck has improved. Shizune joyfully exclaimed. Sunade tightened her jaw. She was aware that bad things happened to her when she won at gambling. She was uncomfortable the entire time she won. It was an instinct that only became apparent when her former teammate Jiraiya entered the booth from the opposite side, followed by a young, blonde ninja who appeared to be a Chunin. But she recognized the blood in the face structure right away. He was Naruto, the son of Kushina and Minato. Jiraiya grinned and said, "It's nice to see you again, Sunade." Shizune had seen through their disguises and appeared alarmed. "Jiraiya, what do you want?" Sunade said, letting go of the henge. Jiraiya turned back to Shizune after giving her a nod. "Hiruzen is going to retire, and we want you to be the next Hokage," Jiraiya replied. "Sunade, a Hokage," snorted. Sunade filled her shot and raised it to her mouth, spitting out, "The Hokage position is stupid, fools who die for nothing." A very agitated Chunin slapped the shot out of her hand before it could reach it. Sunade caught Naruto's attention. He said icily, "I dare you to say that again," and the room's temperature dropped by a few degrees. "Your arms have suffered far too much damage, Orochimaru-sama. In the condition you're in, not even Sunade could help you," a trembling Kabuto said, pressing his glasses to his face. Orochimaru's plans were in ruins, and he spat on the ground in anger as he stared at his useless arms at the hands of the Kyuubi brat and Jiraiya. He knew that his master hated bad news, and he was sweating because he had failed to kill the old foolish Hokage and the invasion of Konoha had failed with the defeat of the Suna and Sound ninjas. "I have to move my soul into a new host, get the prisoners ready for battle. After these 3 years, I will take Sasuke's body, and he will come to me," smiled Orochimaru. Kabuto turned to face Orochimaru, who was mentally plotting. Kabuto said, "Very well, I will go unleash the prisoners," and turned to leave. As Kabuto hurried out of the room, Orochimaru cackled. Orochimaru laughed hysterically as he said, "With the host of the Uchiha, I will have the world at my fingertips in 3 years." After some time, a large, rugged-looking man appeared in front of Orochimaru, accompanied by Kabuto and 2 sound ninjas. "I have beaten my rivals. Release me," he said firmly. The man coiled back in horror with a scream of fear, and Orochimaru smiled at him before he shed his skin and changed into a large snake. He tried to turn, but he ran straight into the 2 sound ninjas, one of whom slammed his knee into his gut, and he moaned as he fell, turning feebly to the swaying Orochimaru. "Yes, since your body is now mine, I will release your soul," Orochimaru hissed, revealing large fangs in his snake form, and the last thing the man saw was a large snake head speeding toward him. He felt a small bite on his neck, and everything turned black. The 2 shinobi recoiled, turning away from the gory procedure, while Kabuto stood there, emotionless. Things like this no longer alarmed him. To him, it was almost like a typical day at the office. A scream of pain was heard, but no one even flinched. They were already accustomed to it, having had hundreds of experiments done continuously. Sunade regarded Naruto with mild amusement and annoyance as he glared at her. "You're brave, kid. Don't mess with her sake," Jiraiya muttered to himself. "You heard me, youngster. Each and every Hokage is a fool who died for nothing," Sunade declared. "The first, second, and fourth are all idiots. Retraction is necessary, Ba-chan. Being Hokage is my dream," Naruto said softly and icily. Sunade shook away visions of her brother and lover who had died, and her eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Ba-chan, you're brave, young one. I'll grant you that, but for playing with me, you're a fool. How about you, Hokage? Let me rest. I advise you to apologize before you are harmed," she said casually. Naruto hissed, "I'll say I'm sorry when you retract what you said, Ba-chan." With a migraine starting, Shizune held up a hand to her head. Taunton had paused his meal and appeared perplexed, while Jiraiya appeared curious, waiting to see what they would do. Sunade grinned and got to her feet. "Now, training ground 51, hurry up." Sunade lifted a green gem necklace and said, I'll give you this necklace and accept the offer to become Hokage if you can make me use more than one finger. Tsunade-sama, what a precious necklace, Shizune yelled, frightening Taunton. Before turning back to Naruto, Tsunade gave Shizune a fierce look to keep her quiet. What if I lose? Naruto inquired. As Sunade put it, give up your dream of becoming Hokage. Naruto gave a nod of agreement. Jiraiya's eyes glowed with joy as they stood at training ground 51, Naruto facing Sunade, who had dropped her henge to reveal her blonde hair and return to her normal body. Pervert, Sunade muttered. Naruto gazed at Sunade below. Brat, you won't get anywhere with glares. Sunade lifted her pinky and taunted, one finger. After closing his eyes, Naruto opened them. With the effect of his bloodline, he muttered, Sharingan. Tsunade's lips curled into a smile as her eyes widened a little. Cute trick, she mocked. After ignoring her remark, Naruto pulled out his katana. He started, I am the bone of my sword. As Tsunade's eyes widened, Naruto glared at him and Jiraiya slapped him on the head, using Unlimited Blade Works, the jutsu that earned Kushina the moniker, Red Death. For what purpose was that? Naruto glared angrily as he asked. Until you're older, no Unlimited Blade works. If you're still growing from the strain of the jutsu, it destroys your body, Jiraiya said. After scowling, Naruto turned back to face Tsunade, sheathed his blade ironically, and charged forward, with Tsunade waiting to greet him. It was time for her to become serious. His fist struck her pinky, and he ducked under his roundhouse kick. She swung her pinky at his face, but he ducked and planted his right arm on the ground, attempting to leg sweep Tsunade. She leapt back, and Naruto did a windmill with both legs, landing on both feet. Naruto jumped above the cracks and Tsunade immediately ran through the cloud, back into the open air, while she chopped downward, her pinky splitting the ground. Naruto was nowhere to be seen. Assassination has two methods. The element of surprise must come first. A voice from the smoke murmured, the first strike must have caused a fatal wound. Tsunade clenched her teeth, braced for anything, and two Narutos erupted from the smoke. One threw a kunai, the other a shuriken. Tsunade jumped up, but when she looked up, she saw Naruto emerge from the sun with his foot coming down in an axe kick. She raised her pinky, and Naruto's foot slammed into it, before she sent him flying with a hit. She smiled, but was taken aback when the Naruto poofed into a cloud, while she remained in midair, with 10 Fuma shurikens swirling around her. Before the shuriken attacked her, Naruto declared, my first original technique. When the shuriken suddenly appeared, Tsunade swore and then used every limb to obliterate them all. She landed unharmed on the ground, her hair covering her face, and she lifted it to reveal a true smile. Tsunade stood up straight and removed the necklace from her neck, saying, you have guts, kid. She approached him, hung it around his neck, and was shocked when Naruto returned the smile and deactivated his Sharingan. Naruto nodded and remarked, I knew there was someone far greater than in the exterior of what I saw. Tsunade ruffled his hair and laughed, then looked at Jiraiya. Jiraiya, you found yourself a great kid, she stated. Jiraiya gave her a smile. Naruto remarked, and Konoha has found a great Hokage. He seemed to bring out the best in everyone. Hinata, Zabuza, Haku, and now Sunade, the soon-to-be Hokage, as she gazed down at him with affection before bending down and kissing his forehead. With a laugh, Jiraiya said, you're getting soft in your old age. Sunade straightened up and turned to Jiraiya, her eyebrow twitching. How on earth did you call me? With the temperature dropping to freezing, she inquired. Crap, Jiraiya muttered. Her father had been impressed by her effort and hard work, and he had to actually try to defend himself. He said that he was proud of her, which made her day even better. Hinata hummed joyfully as she walked down the compound's hallway. As she passed a closed door, Chizu's head protruded from the meeting room, and Hinata grinned at the elder. Hinata smiled and said, hello Chizu-sama. Hi Hinata-chan, kindly enter. Chizu smiled and said, there is something we need to discuss with you. No, said Hinata, getting to her feet. Chizu straightened her own wilted body and stood up, her eyes flashing angrily. Chizu hissed, you dare defy us, girl. Staring at Chizu with daggers, Hinata refused to back down. The Hinata who fell in love with Uchiha Naruto would not have given up, even though the old Hinata might have. Hinata's voice was as cold as steel as she answered, you cannot threaten me. You cannot threaten Neji, and you cannot threaten Hanabi. As she stood her ground, her hands instinctively clenched into fists at her sides. The elders of the Hyuga were becoming more irate around her. Hinata adamantly declared, "I will not end my relationship with Uchiha Naruto." Shizu moved forward to give Hinata a forceful slap across the face. She refused to back down. Hinata looked at her without flinching as she held up her hand. Then Hinata closed her eyes and Shizu swung. And three things occur at that precise moment. First, the doors flew open, letting a number of irate members of a particular pale-eyed clan enter. 2. Hinata's hand did not strike flesh, but Shizu's did. And 3. Senju Sunade and an irate Sandaime Hokage showed up. When Hinata opened her eyes, she saw Naruto with a red mark on his face, glaring at Shizu. Naruto said icily, "You dare hurt my Hinata-chan," as the room's temperature dropped a few degrees. Beside Naruto, Hiashi uttered, "You dare attempt to harm and threaten my daughters." The Sandaime Hokage questioned, "You dare threaten shinobi under my authority?" "You dare threaten shinobi who are going to be under my authority," replied Tsunade. "You dare threaten my son." Neji's mother, Hinata, said. The elders and Shizu both became noticeably whiter. Shizu yelled, "This is clan business." At Tsunade and the Hokage. The Sandaime Hokage narrowed his eyes and uttered, "When you threaten my shinobi, it becomes the Hokage's business." Despite his reputation as a man of peace, the Sandaime Hokage was also notoriously brutal in quelling uprisings and eliminating traitors. The kind elderly man cherished his people and would stop at nothing to keep them safe. With flaming eyes, Hiashi screamed, "You dare question my authority by going behind my back to threaten my daughter?" Tomadori gently extended his hands in an attempt to soothe the Hyuga's head. Tomadori calmly remarked, "Calm down, Hiashi-sama. We are just looking out for what is best for the clan." Hinata yelled angrily, "The best thing is for me to erase your presence from this earth." "You are nothing," branch member, Ruuoni spat. Everyone's eyes shifted to Naruto as he slowly raised a hand. "We agree to your terms. Hinata will break up with me, and you are unable to carry out your threats to Hanabi and Neji," Naruto said slowly. "Naruto-kun," Hinata cried. He turned to wink at her. Hinata scowled at first, but she saw him mouth the words, "Trust me." Hinata nodded. She turned to the elders and declared, "Uchiha Naruto, you are not my boyfriend as of this moment." "Happy." Shizu scowled before reluctantly nodding. She whispered, "It is acceptable then," and the elders gradually started to turn away. Naruto yelled, "Hyuga Hinata, then as of right now, you are my fiancé copyright." The elders immediately turned around, their eyes blazing. Shizu hissed, "What the hell did you say, brat?" With a smile, Naruto held up a contract. The betrothal of Uchiha Naruto to Hyuga Hinata was stated quite clearly. Hinata looked from the contract to Naruto as her eyes grew wide. With a broad, joyful smile and a massive red flush on her face, she muttered, "Naruto-kun, marriage," and passed out. Before anyone could notice, she struck the ground. Naruto's perspiration fell. Maybe Hiashi wasn't the best person to tell them about his marriage and a potential shady meeting between Hyuga elders. The elders of the Hyuga clan suffered severe punishment and lost their abilities. They were all dropped into the branch family after being sealed with the caged bird seal. After that, everything in the Hyuga camp was going smoothly. Still content in La La Land, Hinata was taken away to recuperate from her ordeal. After thanking Hiashi for watching over Hinata, Naruto departed with Tsunade and the Hokage. Jiraiya had approached Naruto that day with the Hokage and Sunade in tow, and word would not get out about Uchiha Naruto and Hyuga Hinata's engagement. "Naruto, I have permission to take you away from Konoha for 2.5 years, Jiraiya replied. Wide-eyed, Naruto gazed at him. Naruto questioned, "You are going to train me?" Jiraiya gave a nod. Jiraiya smiled and said, "I'm going to train you to become an awesome shinobi like me." As Naruto slapped his hand across his forehead, his smile vanished. Naruto moaned, "I'm doomed." The Sandaime Hokage smiled as Tsunade laughed. "Wait just a second, brat. I'm one of the most shinobi alive. You should be honored to be trained by me," Jiraiya replied. "And the most perverted," Tsunade muttered, rolling her eyes out. Naruto smiled as he looked up. Naruto replied, "Thank you. I know." After giving Naruto a startled look, Jiraiya grinned and tousled his hair. "We're leaving early tomorrow, so get all your stuff ready," Jiraiya replied. "Tomorrow? Yes. We'll attend Tsunade's coronation before leaving," Jiraiya replied. Naruto gave a nod. The words, "I understand," came out. "Good. When you'll come back, I would have turned you into the most kick-ass ninja and you'll pass the Anbu test with flying colors, laughed Jiraiya. Naruto gave Jiraiya a smile. With his fist pumped in the air, he declared, and I'll protect everyone who is precious to me. The Hokage ruffled his hair affectionately and remarked, that's the spirit Naruto-kun. I'm sure your parents are very proud of you. Naruto returned the smile. Naruto was shown a ring by Sunade. At least an hour had passed since they started, and Naruto was starting to lose patience. She remarked, that one. Naruto scowled as he observed her. It seems a bit flashy. I don't have that much money either, murmured Naruto. Kid, it's your fiancé copyright you're talking about. It's supposed to be flashy, replied Sunade. Naruto imagined the ring on Hinata's delicate fingers as he considered her smooth and soft hands. He nodded enthusiastically to the jeweler as his thought bubble burst. A very irate Hokage was yelling at the manager in the back room, so the amused jewelry assistant took out the tray and put the ring on the table. Naruto looked it over. He grinned and said, it's perfect. As Sunade was proclaimed the Gondime Hokage, Naruto and Hinata stood hand in hand beside each other. Jiraiya gestured that he had an hour as the audience applauded the hero's return. Naruto nodded and swept Hinata off to a peaceful location where they could be by themselves. Hinata had dozed off on Naruto's shoulder as they sat by a tree. Naruto grinned as he remembered the lovely girl who slept peacefully next to him. The fact that she was his fiancé copyright made Naruto happy on the inside. Perhaps he had known he loved her from the moment he laid eyes on her. He was attracted to her because of her bravery, beauty, sweet disposition, and even her tender affection for small things like flowers. He knew she loved him, even though she didn't share his passion for cinnamon rolls and ramen. After stirring and blinking slowly, Hinata gave Naruto a languid smile. She yawned, then cuddled back onto his shoulder while making adorable noises. A hand passed through her hair as she felt Naruto laugh. They relished the final moments they would spend together for a while. Naruto reluctantly roused her once more. Naruto had purposefully stood up with her back to the tree and no way out as they stood up. Hinata-chan, I found out that I'm leaving on a training trip, started Naruto. Hinata's gaze expanded. What? When are you leaving? For how long? She responded. Naruto answered, 2 years or so. I'm leaving in about 15 minutes. Hinata had lost her smile and appeared completely dejected. In order to lift his eyes, Naruto cupped her chin and pushed it upward. You are my fiancé copyright now, Hinata. Will you wait for me to return? Replied Naruto. Hinata gave him a tight hug and glomped him. I would wait indefinitely, she muttered. She gave him a perplexed look as Naruto pulled away from her embrace. As she watched him bow down, her eyes grew wide. Hinata-chan, even though we are officially engaged, I would like to do it properly. Will you marry me and make me the happiest fiancé copyright on the planet? Replied Naruto. With a modest nod, Hinata observed Naruto grinning and placing a gold ring on her finger. It featured a rose adorned with lavender gems and was beautifully designed. Looking at it, now sitting on her left ring finger, Hinata gasped. It's lovely, she whispered. Naruto gave her a joyful smile before his eyes became serious. He cupped his cheek and whispered, not as beautiful as you thought. When Hinata saw him get closer, her eyes grew wide. Eyes closed, their heads slowly drifted together. They were about to finally meet when Jiraiya's shout of, Gaki! Next to them startled them backward. Naruto, wearing a huge blush, turned to face Jiraiya. He screamed, what the hell? At Jiraiya. Jiraiya smiled, then became serious. He declared, it's time to go. Naruto gave a sorrowful nod, and he and Hinata joined hands to start walking toward the gates with Jiraiya. Damn it, was all they could think about. With his pack fastened to his back, Naruto stood alongside Jiraiya. With the exception of Sasuke, the group known as the Konoha 12 inches stood together. Hyuga Hiashi, Kakashi, Shizune, Taunton, Iruka, Sunade, and the former Hokage Hiruzen were also present. Naruto grinned at the group of people, all of whom had come together via a trial or friendship. Naruto started to go around slowly. Not wearing his Hokage robe, he first embraced Hiruzen. Naruto said, thank you for everything. Hiruzen ruffled his hair and grinned. Your parents are very proud of you, I'm sure, said the man. Next was Sunade, who also gave a hug. Sunade remarked lovingly, I'll miss you, brat. Take care of yourself, you hear me? Naruto returned the whisper, Ba-chan. Shizune gave him a warm embrace and advised him to be careful. Kakashi said he didn't give hugs while ruffling his hair. He shook hands with Kiba, who nodded back, despite their disagreement. Even though they had fought for the same girl, they were aware that when Konoha was overrun, their differences were set aside and they could forgive one another. He eventually reached the final individual as he went around. Hyuga Hinata, his fiancée copyright E, stood hesitantly before him, grinning sadly. She sadly whispered, "Goodbye Naruto-kun," before being embraced. They stood there for a few minutes, just enjoying each other's company for the last time in a long time without saying anything. Hinata, tears streaming down her cheeks, watched them slowly fall apart. Naruto tenderly cupped her right cheek and whispered, "Be strong for me, Hinata-chan." After giving a nod, Hinata took a step back. Jiraiya, who was standing beside Sunade, exclaimed, "Come on, Gaki. It's time we left." With a smile on her face, Sunade gave him a gentle peck on the cheek as he pointed cheekily at his lips. She pressed her lips to his cheek for a brief moment after he gestured to it. With a loving smile, she whispered, "You old pervert, take care of yourself." Jiraiya smiled and said, "Take care of yourself, flat-chested Hokage." Following that, the group waved to Jiraiya and Naruto as they slowly left Konoha. They were a few meters away from the main group, but they were waving joyfully when Naruto caught sight of Hinata's face, grinning for him. After letting out a sigh at his planned action, Naruto hurried back. As Naruto sped past them, the group blinked in shock. As Naruto materialized in front of Hinata, he put his left arm around her back and drew her into a passionate, long-lasting kiss, causing her eyes to widen. His eyes gleamed as he withdrew after a few seconds. He believed he heard a mumbled, troublesome, and a few sighs from the women in attendance. He whispered, "Hyuga Hinata, I love you." As he helped her steady, Hinata became very red and could hardly stay conscious. After giving her a quick squeeze and grinning, Naruto turned to leave. As a sheepish Naruto walked away, scratching the back of his head, several whistles erupted from onlookers. Hiashi had given him a small smile, and Hiruzen had given him a light handcuff on the back of the head. When Naruto arrived, Jiraiya grinned and gave him an elbow. Naruto smiled and pushed him back. They waved goodbye and walked slowly down the street. "Naruto!" was yelled. Naruto turned to see Hinata, who had hurried a few meters ahead of the group. Her hands were balled into fists, and her head was lowered slightly. Her face was red and her eyes were screwed shut. She opened her eyes to gaze at Naruto and exclaimed, "I love you too." With all her heart. She gave him a brilliant smile as her hands relaxed and her posture changed to an upward position as Naruto grinned at her with joy. Hinata's hand clenched into a fist as they vanished over the horizon. "Wait and you'll see Naruto-kun. I'll get even more powerful," she pondered. Ninjas stood silently in another area. Zetsu declared, "Naruto and Jiraiya have left Konoha." Pain grinned. He muttered, "So it begins." They moved quickly, avoiding shuriken and kunai. Both ninjas rolled out of the way of a wave of small stones after ducking beneath the swinging log. The purple-clad figure jumped as another log came closer, slamming her palms against the swinging log and pumping chakra into her hands to propel herself forward while standing up. The pink-clad figure slid on her back beneath the log, then stood up and ran on. An observer frowned at her two apprentices as she watched their every move. A second or two ahead of the pink-haired ninja, the purple-clad ninja crossed the finish line. Sweat was streaming down their faces and they were both panting heavily. They both grabbed water bottles and towels as they walked to a nearby table. Sunade came down to observe Hyuga Hinata and Haruno Sakura. "Very good both of you. Hinata, you're continuing to get faster and better, you made the better decisions and thus you won. Sakura, great work also. Your slide underneath the log was brilliant, but there might have been danger if there was ninja wire hidden. However, both of you showed great skill in avoiding attacks that if inflicted on you could prove fatal to you, or your teammates. Well done both of you, you're dismissed," Sunade said before heading to the tower. Hinata stretched her aching muscles and leaned gratefully against the tree. Sakura was leaning against the tree, exhausted. Sakura turned to face Hinata, who once more had a distant expression on her face. Sakura sighed and casually shook her head at Hinata, saying, "You're thinking about him again." Hinata sprang to her feet and turned to Sakura, her face sporting a slight flush. How do you know?" Hinata squeaked. Sakura grinned. Sakura imitated Hinata's face and mockingly said, "Because when you think of him, your eyes get this dreamy faraway look." Hinata giggled and pushed her with her shoulder. With a hand on her shoulder, Sakura said, he'll be back soon. Hinata gave Sakura a smile. Hinata answered, I understand. I just need to wait a bit longer. As they arrived in Konoha, Naruto sneezed. Jiraiya shook his head and looked at him. At about 8 in the morning, it was still early. The streets were largely clear because Konoha had only just begun to awaken from its sleep. Overhead, birds chirped in the trees. The guards showed them their papers and nodded them through, and it was comparatively quiet. They marched into Konoha together. I told you that we should have stayed for longer at that motel, Jiraiya replied. Naruto turned to Jiraiya after taking a sniff. If we stayed any longer, you would have found the red light district. I prefer that we left then and there, said Naruto. Jiraiya gave a snort. Jiraiya sneered, you just don't have any taste in women. Naruto gave him a disbelieving glance. Naruto muttered, Hinata-chan is nothing like those women you go out with. Jiraiya smiled. With a knowing smile, he said, and you haven't seen her for a long time, perhaps you're nervous. Naruto grinned at Jiraiya after glancing at the ground. He smiled and remarked, perhaps a tiny bit. Jiraiya stated, I have to go see Sunade first, though. Naruto gazed over Konoha as they leapt to the roof. Naruto looked around and remarked, it's good to be back. He smiled when he saw Tsunade's face on the Hokage mountain. Naruto chuckled and said, Oba-chan's old mug is now on display for everyone to see. With a smile on her face, Jiraiya and she jumped over the roofs to reach the Hokage monument. They rapped on the heavy office doors of the Hokage. Go away, was the muttered response. Observing the expression in Jiraiya's eye, Naruto shook his head. He whispered, you have a death wish. With a shout of victory, Jiraiya kicked open the doors with a foot. Jiraiya started to say, Tsunade, I'm Ba, but was cut off when a heavy medical book struck his skull, sending him into the wall across from him, leaving a beautiful indent. Jiraiya exclaimed, that wasn't nice. As he pulled his body away from the indent. However, a second heavy medical book struck his face, creating a beautiful figure in the wall with a square book for a head. After blinking, Naruto moved forward. Tsunade was slouched with her left side down over the desk. She looked surprised as she picked up her head, a piece of paper stuck to her mouth. With a look of surprise on her face, Tsunade stood up as a hand snatched the offending paper and threw it onto the desk. I didn't expect you back so soon, Tsunade said. I thought you would be back in another week or so. Jiraiya, who appeared fully recovered, stood beside Naruto. Jiraiya puffed, his chest expanding with air, I just wanted to see your lovely face again, my lady Tsunade. Tsunade mumbled, piss off, smiling as Jiraiya's chest flattened. Tsunade glanced up and down at Naruto, who had nearly reached Jiraiya's height. Tsunade laughed and opened her arms to embrace the little squirt, saying, seemed the little squirt had a growth spurt. Tsunade acted as a mother figure in Naruto's life, and despite their brief time together, Naruto reminded her a lot of a son she never had. Jiraiya positioned himself to be hugged again as she moved forward to embrace Naruto. Jiraiya flew into the wall with a big chakra-powered slap to the cheek, deepening the indent in the wall. Stupid pervert, Tsunade muttered darkly before turning to face Naruto and giving him a close-up look. Tsunade smiled and said, it looks like you're in top physical condition. I'm sure the ladies will be pleased about that. Naruto returned the smile. Naruto shuddered at the regime and remarked, I've already engaged Ba-chan. Plus, Ero Sennin put me on a hellish regime which left me exhausted for about the first 2 months that I did it. It was for his own good, Jiraiya stated gravely. Recognizing the situation, Tsunade gestured for her Anbu guards to depart before erecting a soundproof wall around the space. Akatsuki are mobilizing their forces, several of the Biju have been captured already, stated Jiraiya. Tsunade worriedly inquired, what news from our contact? Is he still loyal? Naruto nodded and walked out of the room when Jiraiya gestured to him. There were still some items that required classification. When the door had closed, Jiraiya said, yes, Itachi is still loyal. Tsunade questioned, was he able to help Naruto train? Yes, he and Kisame split for about a month to look for different clues on the location of the Biju. Itachi was able to visit for a lengthy period then, and also a few sporadic visits over the years, said Jiraiya. Tsunade nodded after scowling. Tsunade put her hands on her hips and remarked, so he stays loyal, even now. Jiraiya let out a sigh and sagged a little. With some concern, Tsunade said, you should go rest, you're tired, aren't you? Jiraiya gave her a smile. Jiraiya whispered, I'll be fine, Sunade-chan, before letting Naruto in and opening the door. Sunade turned to both of them. Welcome back to Konoha officially then. Naruto, the Anbu wished to see you as soon as possible for the testing, Sunade replied. Naruto gave a nod and walked away. Oh, and Naruto, Sunade exclaimed. As Naruto turned, he saw a chain of keys. Sunade said lovingly, it's good to have you back. The keys to your new house, the house that you now inherit. Naruto grinned and said, thanks Ba-chan. It's good to be home, before heading out. Sunade turned to face Jiraiya, who scowled at her malevolent gaze. Since you're fine Jiraiya-kun, you can write me a minimum of a 2-page report on your training with Naruto, replied Sunade. Jiraiya gave a face fail. Indeed, welcome home. Naruto traveled to the Anbu headquarters, which is close to the Hokage tower. He strode to the entrance and entered the building after the Anbu guard there nodded him in. As he pushed through the heavy oak door, he saw a typical civilian woman wearing glasses and having her dark red hair pulled back in a ponytail. She sat in a room that was entirely empty save for a pot plant and a big secretary desk. Another receptionist, who was on the phone, was seated next to her. She spoke in a clipped professional voice as she looked at her page. She returned to the papers on her desk after saying, Uchiha Naruto, please proceed to room 304 on the 5th level. Thank you. After giving a nod of gratitude, Naruto headed upstairs to room 304. He took a deep breath and rapped on the door. Come in, was the response. When Naruto walked in, he saw Morino Ibiki and an Anbu member wearing a mask. The room contained a couch, a television, a desk, and multiple chairs, and a couple of images. Ibiki stood up and took his place to the left of the Anbu member, who was seated in a chair behind the desk. People could look out of a reflective window, but they couldn't look in because the room was bright with sunlight. Ibiki gestured for him to take a seat in the offered chair. As Ibiki produced a clipboard, Naruto sat down. Uchiha Naruto, I assume you are here for your Anbu test. Ibiki responded. Hi, was Naruto's emotionless response. Excellent. Would you wish to proceed immediately, or schedule for another time? Ibiki responded. Naruto answered, now would be appropriate, Ibiki-sama. The member of Anbu moved forward in his chair. Naruto gave it a close look and recognized it as a crocodile. Do you know why Anbu members wear a mask, Naruto-san? Crocodile inquired. Naruto gave a headshake. There are various reasons, many of which could be applicable. Perhaps a code of honor, or a code of conduct when wearing the mask. I am unsure of the significance of the mask, but am more than willing to learn, said Naruto. Crocodile gave a nod of approval. The Anbu member stated, good answer, then we shall proceed with the test. Ibiki said, please follow us, and Naruto followed the two commanding figures as they left the office. Blood was streaming from a cut above Naruto's forehead as he slammed into the wall. Blood spit out of his mouth. A hooded figure with a face questioned, what is pain? What is pleasure? What is agony? What is death? Naruto grinned as he glanced at him. He taunted, answer to all the above, fresh bread. 3 designated members of Cloud Anbu struck him with their fists. Naruto was then sliced across the skull, knocking him to the ground. He saw stars after being kicked in the jaw, and he lost his breath after being kicked in the stomach. You are going to die either way. We can do this the short way, and ease your suffering, or the long way, said the hooded individual. With his arms bound behind his back with unique handcuffs that prevented chakras from working, Naruto snorted as he slowly raised himself up. The 3 Anbu members grabbed Naruto and placed him in a lone chair in the dark room after the figure nodded to them. The room had only one light swinging. Are you willing to tell me every secret you have? I will ease your pain, little child, said the figure. Naruto did not answer. We have authorization to kill you if you do not reveal what you know. We will not hold back, unless you tell us everything, stated the individual. Silently, Naruto glared at the figure. Before Naruto's shirt was torn open, the figure chuckled, all you have to do is plead for mercy. Naruto felt a kunai drive about an inch into his chest. Naruto clenched his jaw in agony. Tell us, everything, the figure hissed. After shaking his head, Naruto was struck in the chest by 2 more kunai. Blood was streaming from Naruto's body as he screamed in agony. His face went to the side as a backhand slammed across it. His face was held by the hooded figure. The figure hissed, if you beg for mercy, this will all be over, and then slammed his forehead against Naruto's. A kunai was scraped across both of his arms after a cut appeared on his forehead. A tiny pool of blood was now forming on the ground. The chest of Naruto heaved up and down. His thigh was cut when the figure reached down and pulled a scalpel. Naruto tightened his jaw. After lowering itself to extract a menacing-looking hook, the figure moved it to the location of his liver. "Mercy," he inquired. "Never," Naruto yelled. Naruto found himself in a world of agony after the figure drove the hook into his stomach. "Mercy," the figure mocked. "No," Naruto suffocated. As the hook went deeper, he let out a painful scream. "Now, no," they added another hook, and he felt it snagging his large intestine. "Now," Naruto screamed, "I would rather die." As he arrived, Naruto gasped and shook his head. Breathing heavily, he sat in the chair. "Well done. You have passed the exam to be entered into the Anbu Corps," Ibiki replied. Naruto gave a heave. "Amazing. I completely lost it that I was in a genjutsu. It was so real," Naruto gasped. After smiling, Ibiki gestured for Naruto to follow him. After following them down a number of stairs, Naruto arrived at a spacious hall featuring a stage. Crocodile and Ibiki turned to face him. "The purpose of the Anbu exam is exactly that. Are you able to withstand large amounts of pain and horrific torture? Anbu can be given vital information by the Hokage or high officials, and if captured should this information be extracted could cost the lives of hundreds of fellow shinobi. Many are asked to join the Anbu but there is a high fail rate," Ibiki began. With his hands behind his back, Crocodile approached him. He looked at Naruto as he strode up to him. "The Ansatsu Senjutsu Tokushu Butai are the right hand of the Hokage. They are there to serve and protect first and foremost the Hokage and the village. They are the ones who embark on the hardest missions, the ones who risk their lives to protect the village. They are the ones asked to do the near impossible, and trained to be the elite of the ninja forces. They are called upon to make large sacrifices to the Anbu, as well as having to live a double life and never compromising the organization," stated Crocodile. "There are only a select number of people who enter the Anbu by the cages themselves. Anbu are to be sent to different sub-groups within an organization, yet each and every member is important," Ibiki continued. "Anbu are handpicked personally by the Hokage. The Sandaime Hokage has recommended you, as has the Gondaime Hokage herself. The mask of the Anbu is a symbolism of your oath to protect and serve the Hokage, and of Konoha herself. Traitors are to be cursed to the lowest hell, and loyalty is rewarded with comradeship and a joining of the coalition of brothers and sisters. And with the passing of this test, Uchiha Naruto, you are eligible to join this select group of ninjas, loyal to the Hokage and to Konoha foremost. Uchiha Naruto, do you agree to join the Anbu? If your answer is no, you will never be asked ever again," Crocodile continued. After straightening up, Naruto bowed. "I accept this honor," he declared. Crocodile said, "Then step forward, and receive the mask," and he produced a mask from behind him. Naruto took the mask and moved forward. It was sturdy but lightweight. His nose and other facial features were positioned in a number of indentations. Nothing was visible to secure the mask to him, not even a string. Naruto said, "I accept with honor," then took a step back and turned to face the two men. Crocodile clarified, "If you put the mask on yourself, it will only stick to your face." When Naruto put the ceramic mask on his face, chakra poured into the mask from his tenketsu. Despite Naruto shaking his head, the mask remained in place. Even though he was wearing a mask now, he was still able to see clearly through it as though nothing were blocking his vision. Crocodile said, "May this mask be the symbol of your oath to Konoha. Step forward, Fox." When Crocodile uttered these words, Anbu members streaming in from all over Konoha surrounded him. Everyone applauded, and Naruto approached them, bowing deeply. The members of the Anbu then vanished as swiftly as they had appeared. Naruto looked at Crocodile and Ibiki. "Fox, only a select few will know about your identity. All Anbu members' identity, except for a select few, are to be kept secret. To reveal the identities of Anbu members could allow the coalition to be compromised. That is why only after the placing of your mask, are Anbu members allowed to congratulate you. It is vital that you keep your identity safe," stated Crocodile. Fox acknowledged with a nod. "And what branch of the Anbu would you be suited for, Fox?" Ibiki responded. At that moment, Sunade and Jiraiya showed up. Sunade ruffled Fox's hair affectionately and smiled at him. She remarked, "I see Squirt has passed the exam." "Hi, Hokage-sama," Ibiki said. Jiraiya inquired, "Have you put him in a branch yet?" Crocodile said, "No Jiraiya-sama. We are going to do that now." Jiraiya smiled and said, May I suggest, the assassination squad? Crocodile and Ibiki exchanged glances. All due respect Jiraiya-sama, the assassination squad has the highest fatality rate, and is also the most prestigious. It is tough for all Anbu who walk that path. Fox is also very young, only 15, replied Crocodile. I trained him myself. His style is suited to the assassination squad, and I assure you Hokage-sama agrees, stated Jiraiya. Sunade gave a nod. I will also personally overlook the missions he will undertake. He is an exception, as we all know the dangers of Akatsuki. We cannot allow Fox to fall into the wrong hands, stated Sunade. I understand Hokage-sama. Fox, you will be relegated to the assassination branch of the Anbu. For now, rest up and start to prepare yourself. You are an Anbu now, and you must now act like one whenever you put on the mask. You are allowed to walk around in public day with the mask, but be respectful to the people, and do not abuse the powers you are given as an Anbu. Violators and abusers of power will be punished severely. I suggest you read the manual that will be delivered to your house at a later date, replied Crocodile. And for the person who I reveal my identity to, Fox responded. You must do it in secret, and only that person may know. Fox, you must swear that person to secrecy, and they must not reveal the identity of who you are, Ibiki said. Fox remarked, I understand Ibiki-sama. Is there anything else you require? I assume it has been a long 2.5 years, and are in need of some rest, replied Crocodile. Fox shook his head and then became alert. One thing, can I get one of those long robes Anbu wear? But in black, replied Naruto. Your mask will allow you to access the stores for weapons and clothing. They are located below ground, Ibiki said. Naruto said, then, with permission, I ask for my leave. Permission granted. Go now Fox, and may the mask serve you well, replied Crocodile. After bowing to them, Naruto left. Crocodile glanced at Sunade and Jiraiya. I have the latest report for you concerning Akatsuki and their activities in my office, before I need to head off. Kisame is growing slightly suspicious and it would be wise to hasten my departure as soon as possible, replied Crocodile. Sunade said, come Ibiki, we will need your mind for this one as well, and the four of them headed for Crocodile's office. He gave the secretary a nod before heading down the one-story stairs to the two Anbu standing watch. The stairs ended there, and it was the only door open. Through the door, they gave him a nod. The base's outline was displayed on a large map on the side of a spacious hallway. Fox followed the length of the corridor to the clothes store with his finger. Anbu would greet him with a nod as he walked down the corridor, and he would do the same. He headed for the designated hallway and proceeded down it. Everything was blocked by a door that stood in the center. A scanner scanned Naruto's mask as he approached the door, and then the door opened to let him in. Cool, Naruto thought. When Fox entered the store, he saw a chubby male civilian reading a book while seated in a chair. He glanced at Fox and lowered the book. The civilian said, everything you will find here. Please pay here when you are done. With a nod of gratitude, Fox took out the black robe that was the size of his head and carried it to the counter. The civilian glanced at the robe's price and said, new. Haven't seen you before. Hi, said Fox. The man grinned and said, then take this as half price. With a nod of gratitude, Naruto handed him the necessary cash and departed the shop. This is the start of my new life as an Anbu. With enthusiasm, he thought. I suppose we should go see Hinata-chan now. Standing silently on the tree trunk some distance away, he observed her spinning elegantly around, creating different shapes. At the moment, she was training near a sizable lake, quite a distance from Konoha. When she spun herself into a Kaden, he saw her long hair swirl in the air. Then, she abruptly stopped and hopped in a ready position, her arms facing him. For the first time in 2.5 years, Fox had a chance to see her up close. At the age of 12, she was adorable and attractive, but by the time she was 15, she was developing into a stunning young lady who nearly astounded him. Her bangs were brushed aside, and her long hair cascaded down her back. She gazed confidently at him, her pupilless eyes framed by long eyelashes. You have been watching me for 15 minutes, what is your business, Anbu? She inquired. With a quiet chuckle, Fox leapt to the ground. He grinned to himself. She didn't have her Byakugan on. Before he unleashed his murderous intent, he strode slowly in her direction. Hinata's gaze expanded. Byakugan, she muttered, and her Byakugan immediately came to life. Without using any hand seals, Fox activated his Sharingan in response. She hurried in a straight line, very fast. Fox reached for his weapon holster in his pants pocket. He drew 3 shuriken and hurled them at her. She entered a slide and leaned her head back while they passed overhead innocuously. Then she threw her weight forward and slammed her hands to the floor. She used her chakra to move faster and farther forward, creating 2 tiny craters. Fox took a quick step back and threw 3 more shuriken at her. This time, the shuriken flew beneath her as she arched her back gracefully after spinning her body in the air to increase her speed. She landed with a hand between her knees and 2 feet on the ground. She leapt forward quickly after landing, her left hand rising in a chop toward Fox's head. Fox's right arm sprang up, using his forearm to block the blow at the wrist. She moved, reaching for his chest with her right hand. He slapped the hand up with his other arm. Then she shifted quickly, switching to a sweep of her legs. With his head turned to the ground, Fox slid away from her, back-flipping backwards. Naruto thought proudly, "My dearest, you have come a long way." Then Hinata lunged forward, releasing 3 shuriken with her hand. As Fox ducked and approached, he saw Hinata's hand reach for his mask and yank it off. Using her momentum, he threw her in the same direction she was going after. His left hand shot up and grabbed her wrist. She flipped forward and flew through the air, flinging 3 kunai. After removing 2 kunai and knocking off the other 2, Fox grabbed the final one and threw it back. After landing, Hinata turned around and narrowly avoided the kunai, cutting her cheek as it passed and crashed into the tree. She immediately extended her hand, briefly turning green as she closed the wound. As usual, it was quick and very controlled, Naruto thought. Her hands blurred into hand seals as she stepped forward, leaping into the air. As she exclaimed, "Suiden Suiryuden no Jutsu." With a roar, a huge dragon rose from the lake's depths and headed in Fox's direction. Fox used his own hand seals in response. Doden Doryuaheki was his response. Just as the dragon thundered towards Fox, mud poured out of the tiny opening at the bottom of the porcelain mask, allowing Anbu members to perform mouth-related jutsu. The mud formed a large wall in front of Fox. Water and earth flew as the dragon crashed into the wall. When Fox noticed that his wall's upper half was gone, he stood still. Having trained in the morning and again now, Hinata was a little exhausted. She felt a little guilty now because she had invested a lot of chakra in her dragon. "What is this Anbu trying to get me to do?" she thought. "I can't get past his defense, but he's coming at me with the intent to kill." Hinata calmed herself and cleared her head by taking slow, deep breaths. She was aware that he wasn't yet fully serious because he hadn't produced the katana strapped to his back. Her head held high and her eyes gleamed with confidence as she asked, "Are you afraid to use your katana?" She sensed that the Anbu's eyes were staring at her, but it remained silent. As a breeze passed by, her hair blowing in the wind, the porcelain face with the red markings of a fox just stared back. As a few leaves passed by, Hinata blinked reflexively. He was gone when her eyes opened. Her Byakugan immediately saw him approaching from the left, and she assumed the Juken stance, shifting sideways with her right arm close to her chest and her left arm out. She was pushed backwards by his barrage of punches and kicks. She ducked under a quick fist, then pushed herself back even more when her arms shot out to block a kick. The kick pushed her back, causing her sandals to slide against the floor. After straightening up, she pushed off her hands backwards from a leg sweep and backflipped into a handstand. To her astonishment, the Anbu kicked off with its hand, resembling Metagai's dynamic entrance move with his foot extended. With a sidestep, Hinata raised her left leg to touch the Anbu's foot. Hinata was knocked to the ground when the Anbu's legs windmilled and slammed into her other foot. As the axe kicked and his foot struck the ground where she had been just a moment earlier, she swiftly rolled to the side. The Anbu gracefully flipped up with one hand before charging once more as she slid into a ready position. It was immediately difficult for Hinata to protect herself from the growing barrage of attacks. Her last line of defense had to be used. She shouted, "Protection of the 8 trigrams 64 palms." He entered with a barrage of knees, elbows, and punches. She quickly counted the number in her mind as she parried each one. 64. As a fist crept through and headed for her face, she thought frantically. Her head struck nothing but air, so she cocked it to the left. He slid back as she kicked back, her feet striking his guard. With increased speed and intensity, the Anbu returned with a vengeance. Hinata had to use all of her strength to avoid the initial attacks. Protection of the 8 trigrams, 128 palms. She screamed. As they clashed, the Anbu's feet fully complemented her hands, and her final defense held firm. 128, she retreated in thought. She shouted, Yuho Soshiken, as chakra began to form on her hands. She swung both of them in the direction of the Anbu member. The Anbu member used what appeared to be 2 orbs of chakra to counteract her own. A huge cloud of smoke erupted as the 2 moves collided, sending them both flying. Hinata took off in reverse. She thought, damn it, the smoke is too thick and chakra-based for my Byakugan to see through. She watched in horror as the Anbu member blasted her through the smoke. Her left hand reached out in a palm toward her chest as she slid to a stop, but it was blocked to the side. She was about to raise her left foot toward her groin when it was stepped on. He was now directly in front of her, already on her guard, after her right arm blocked his kick. The Anbu member's right arm held her back gently but firmly as their faces were only a few centimeters apart. She did not, however, perceive any threat from the Anbu member. Rather, her body relaxed and she felt satisfied. What's going on? Hinata asked. She froze when a tender hand caressed her cheek, removing dirt. Electric sparks erupted from their touch, freezing her thoughts. Deathly soft and shocked, she whispered, Naruto-kun. The Anbu member lifted their left hand and gradually removed the mask to reveal an older Naruto grinning broadly while his eyes were fixed on her. My Hinata-chan, he muttered, then leaned forward and kissed her tenderly. He pulled away to gaze at her wide eyes and pale ghostly face. Immediately, she passed out. Sitting on a cozy sofa in a spacious living room, Hinata woke slowly and blinked. She yawned slowly, thinking that Naruto had returned in a fantastic dream she had just had. The blanket covering her dropped to the ground as she sat up. She surveyed the strange location. The wooden floorboards appeared shiny and had just been waxed, and it had just been cleaned. The curtains were hanging in a multicolored area of light red, yellow, and blue. There were long sweeping sounds and footsteps. Wondering how she got here, Hinata shook her head. Then it dawned on her. It had been reality, not a dream. Naruto, she exclaimed as she bounded to her feet. Glancing frantically, her bare feet ran down into the closest hallway. Naruto emerged from a room carrying a big broom, his expression first inquisitive and then beaming. A smile spread across Hinata's face. He pointed farther down the corridor and said, Hinata-chan, Naruto is in the study, it's that way. With a nod of gratitude, Hinata eagerly went on, encountering multiple Narutos who were all cleaning. They had all smiled at her and gestured toward the real Naruto. As she hurried through the mansion, Hinata was astounded by the size of the house. When she finally arrived at the study at the rear of the house, she saw Naruto. Naruto grinned and got up after giving her a startled look as he reached for a scroll on the study desk. Hinata-chan, he exclaimed, his face beaming with joy at seeing his angel. The next second she thundered into his chest, her arms glomping him around the waist, and he laughed softly. 2 powerful, firm arms encircled her in a tender embrace. Her voice was joyful as she whispered, You're back, my Naruto-kun. As she approached his shoulder, Naruto planted a kiss on the top of her head. He said, Yes, Hinata-chan, I'm back, with gleaming eyes. With a fierce blush on her face, she put her arms around his neck and pulled him down after grinning. She whispered, I wasn't awake for the first one, and then she kissed him. The room reverberated with the sound of katanas being used on staff. During their sparring session, Naruto assisted Konohamaru in honing his form and speed. While Naruto was wearing short red pants and a black muscle shirt that exposed his arms to Hinata's delight, Konohamaru was happy to be wearing his typical attire. At the moment, they were in Naruto's mansion's left wing, the dojo. Thwack, clash, clash. The sound of Konohamaru's butt being struck by the flat portion of a katana. Naruto yelled, Konohamaru, as he observed the ninja massaging his butt. Konohamaru muttered, You're too good. Nonsense. You're not concentrating. Once in a while your thoughts waver, and you blush red, said Naruto. Hiruzen and Hinata were sitting on the floor watching, a pot of tea close by with 2 freshly poured cups, when Konohamaru stopped dead in his tracks and looked up. Naruto said gravely, And that is when I take advantage. Focused Konohamaru, before smiling a little and wiping perspiration from his face. Naruto smiled, But I don't blame you for thinking about Hanabi. Konohamaru looked at him with wide eyes and made a choked sound. Konohamaru's face was flushed with shame, and Hiruzen and Hinata both laughed. Believe me, those Hyuga women are irresistible, Naruto chuckled, giving Hinata a playful wink. Picking up her teacup and taking a sip, Hinata blushed slightly and giggled. Now focus, Naruto said, becoming solemn and rushing. They struck fast, moved swiftly. With a slash overhead, Naruto made Konohamaru duck. After sliding back, Konohamaru launched an offensive with Enma in his Monkey King bar form. With a swift thrust, he pushed Naruto back. As their weapons clashed, Naruto roared, "Good," and stopped Konohamaru's charge, pushing away. When Konohamaru faltered a little, Naruto swooped in like a lion to make the kill. Konohamaru's staff was out of position after 2 hits. With his blade aimed at the heart, Naruto took a step forward. Sweat trickled down his face and he paused, panting. "Good work, Konohamaru. Take a break and we'll continue," replied Naruto. After Konohamaru nodded, Enma changed back and started discussing his form with him. Naruto approached Hinata, who smiled and tossed him a bottle of water. Naruto returned the smile, sighing as he drank intently, finishing half the water bottle. He shook his head wildly as he poured the remaining water over his head. Unbeknownst to him, Hinata froze, then her tongue started to move, licking her lips with a red flush on her face like a lion eyeing food. When Naruto whipped off his shirt and tossed it aside after drying his face, her blush only got deeper. Hiruzen laughed as Naruto stretched without realizing how it affected his fiancé copyright. Konohamaru just gazed at Naruto in wonder. Semi-envious, Konohamaru said, "Whoa. How did you get your body to look so good?" Naruto flexed his arm muscles and smiled. Hinata looked longingly over him. Broad shoulders, powerful arms, and a well-defined six-pack on the chiseled torso. Hinata joyfully savored the glistening, heaving body. Hard work in order to be at peak physical condition, and lots of vegetables and barely ramen. Because sometimes you cannot always rely on chakra to allow you to overpower your opponent, and so I work to become strong muscle-wise, but not having my muscles too bulky as that would slow you down. The secret is to be strong, but also lean, stated Naruto. Before Naruto's katana struck him on the thigh not lightly, either of Konohamaru's eyes grew distant. Konohamaru rubbed frantically and gave a loud yelp. As he advanced to attack, Naruto yelled, "Yes, Hanabi would be impressed. Now concentrate, Konohamaru." With a hint of blood leaking from her left nostril, Hinata's eyes followed Naruto, her red face sporting a dreamy expression. Hiruzen looked at her and smiled. The impact Naruto was having on his fiancé copyright was entirely unknown to him. "Oh, if only she had seen me in my prime. Now that was a sight to behold," Hiruzen grumbled. The days that followed were devoted to preparation and training. Naruto had joined his Anbu squad and was working hard. Tiger was the leader. He was driven, professional, and confident without being arrogant. Mole was simply a soft-spoken, somewhat hidden person, but you listened to him when he spoke. He was also skilled with poison, small daggers, subtle killing, and, when necessary, his own katana. Crane was the last one. She was their range specialist and possessed exceptional bow and arrow skills. She was able to strike a target in the forehead at a distance of 50 meters. They collaborated to build bonds and chemistry by working on the simulator together, operation after operation. A mission came as the group started to gel and teamwork took hold. Sunade forced Hinata to use sophisticated medical procedures. Sunade taught Sakura, Hinata, and Ino as much as she could in her spare time, pouring all of her knowledge into their minds. Hinata spent many hours perspiring over thick theory books in search of a remedy for a medical condition or, occasionally, a poison. A few days later, Naruto and Hinata were sitting on a bench in a remote park when an Anbu member suddenly materialized beside them. He gave Naruto a scroll and vanished as soon as he did. With a worried expression on her face, Hinata questioned, "You're already going for your first mission for Anbu?" Naruto glanced at the mission scroll and nodded. Hinata was permitted to be in the vicinity of the scroll but was not allowed to read it since she was placed on the Anbu's whitelist for knowing Naruto's identity as Fox. Hinata's lilac eyes were fixed on him as she asked, "Does this mission involve Akatsuki?" Her fears were validated by Naruto's silence. Her eyes were sad but worried as she gazed at him. Naruto gestured to her while shoving the scroll into his pocket. He put his arms around her as she approached and sat on his lap. "I don't want you to be worried just because I'm in Anbu. We are well trained, and plus a few teams are going, from both Konoha and Suna. There'll be plenty of highly trained ninjas to keep me safe," he stated. Hinata muttered, I'm just worried, that's all. Naruto smiled and said, it's okay to be worried. Just trust that I'll be back. Hinata grinned and nodded. I believe that you'll come back to me, she replied. After giving her a gentle kiss, Naruto helped Hinata stand up. Come on, I still have a few hours before I have to get ready. What do you want to do? Replied Naruto. Hinata wrinkled her nose thoughtfully before smiling. Cinnamon rolls, she exclaimed with delight. Naruto smiled at his contented fiancé copyright. He said, all right, let's go, darling, and they left hand in hand. As Naruto emerged from the shower that evening, he mentally and physically readied himself. He was ready to start getting ready, so he pulled on boxers and dried himself. He put on a vest that had pockets that could hold several scrolls after putting on a simple black shirt. Before fastening a weapon holster to his right thigh, he put on lightweight cargo pants. He fastened his belt firmly before putting on the standard Anbu armor. He tightened the armor at the points where the shoulder straps met the breastplate. Two small hidden blades were concealed beneath the black painted steel bracers that had been infused with chakra seals. His hands were covered with skin-tight black gloves. He made sure his weapon pouch was both full and well organized by packing shuriken and kunai inside. He went to his scroll shelf and took out a number of scrolls from where they were resting and shoved them into his pockets. In order to make his katana less noticeable, he strapped it to his back vertically before turning to face his weapon cabinet. At last, he put on his Anbu robe in its full length. He approached a wooden panel and gave it a slight push, causing it to slide away and expose his Anbu mask. He extended his arm and took the porcelain mask, pressing it against his face. As the cold porcelain settled and wound itself around his chakra, he felt it touch his features. Fox had taken Naruto's place. He pulled up his hood and shushin to his home's roof before making his way toward Anbu headquarters. This mission was being carried out by multiple teams. It was a high-risk operation that needed the assistance of multiple Anbu groups. They were to infiltrate a crucial Akatsuki base that was constructed underground on the edge of the land of Earth as members of the assassination squad. Along with being a virtual maze, it had tunnels and numerous air vents. Sneaking in would be difficult. Their target was a high-ranking official who was crucial to the operations in that region but was not a member of Akatsuki. He was known as Shin, and his passing would be very helpful in the battle against Akatsuki. Eliminating as many of Shin's lieutenants as they could was their secondary goal. One team was moving in to support the assault team from within the enemy ranks, while the other two assassination teams were entering. The infiltration team would move in and look for any information that could be found, including important documents. They would plant specially made scrolls that are overflowing with chakra as their secondary information. They would supply explosions to destroy the base in addition to causing damage and crippling it. To create a distraction and allow the assassination and infiltration team to sneak into the base undetected, another team was made up of Anbu from Sunade and Konoha. They had to provide a sufficient distraction so that the other teams could enter covertly. This large-scale mission involved 24 Anbu in total. They were designated Alpha 1 and Alpha 2 because 8 members of the assassination division would be involved. As a member of Alpha 1, Naruto was assigned to the infiltration team. The distraction would be demonstrated by Kappa 1, 2, and 3. To assist with the operation, Suna had 2 Anbu teams. Speaking to the crowd gathered in the assembly hall was Sunade. Anbu, this is a highly dangerous operation. You know your objectives. You know what is at stake here for both Sunake and Konoha. The Cage and I are counting on you. Dismissed. Sunade responded. The Anbu teams all bowed together before taking off. The trip to the operation site would take 2 days, plus an additional 2 days for preparation and execution. In the dead of night, they departed. One day after the departure of the Anbu, Sunade sat in her Hokage chair. A raven flew in with a note wrapped around its claw as sunlight streamed into her office. She did it fast. Itachi, she pondered. Since messages could be intercepted, Itachi rarely took the chance of sending them. He only took action when it was absolutely necessary. Her heart stopped when she opened the little note. Get your Anbu back right away. The adversary is aware of your approach. Before Tsunade's ninja instincts took over, she appeared stunned. 2 Anbu stepped to attention from concealed locations throughout the room as she swiftly flicked her wrist. The only people in the village who could be of assistance are the Konoha 10. Practically every Anbu member and ninja are on a mission. Sunade yelled, Anbu, get me the Konoha 10 and anyone else available. Yes Hokage-sama, They exclaimed before vanishing. Sunade opened a drawer and took out a scratchy with a trembling hand. She froze, revealing 3 of the same symbol with her fingernail. She had prevailed. With the exception of Naruto, the Konoha 10 stood in silence. Sunade examined each one before erecting a soundproof wall around the space. What I ask you to do is an S-rank mission. Haste is of the essence, and what I say here does not leave the room, she said with seriousness. After a few seconds, the group's murmurs subsided as they noticed Sunade's grave expression. About a day ago, a joint strike team of Anbu from Sakura and Konoha set out to eliminate a very high-profile target. However, due to information received, we believe it to be a trap. Most likely the Anbu team has been eliminated or captured. It is up to you to infiltrate the base and extract all surviving Anbu. The secondary target is to kill the target the Anbu were aiming for, Ryanyoku Shin, stated Sunade. Hyuga Neji, Sunade exclaimed. Neji took a bold step forward, gazing directly ahead. You will be in charge of this team. Bring everyone home, and as many survivors as you can, stated Sunade. Neji turned to face the gathered group and said, I will do my best. We meet at the front gate at 10, so an hour from now. Take time to gather all essential equipment and supplies, said Neji. They gave a nod and proceeded swiftly, one by one. Hinata, Sunade exclaimed hastily. Everyone was staring at Hinata as she paused. After giving a nod, they departed before she turned to face Sunade and approached the desk. The strength and power were gone, replaced by the weary and slightly melancholy eyes of a woman concerned for her family as Sunade raked a weary hand through her hair and clenched her eyes before opening them. Whatever you do, Hinata, you must extract Fox at all costs. That is your objective, everything and everyone else is secondary. This is not a request, but an order, stated Sunade. The firm orders caused Hinata's eyes to widen. She paused. Sunade let out a sigh. I have to order you to do this, Hinata. If he falls into Akatsuki's hands, thousands will die. If you have to choose between saving Fox and Neji, save Fox. I will take complete responsibility. My orders, my responsibility, Sunade firmly stated. After blinking multiple times, Hinata grudgingly nodded. She had terrible posture and even more deflated shoulders. Good girl. Fox cannot fall into Akatsuki's hands. Thousands will die if they realize who he is, replied Sunade. After nodding and leaving, Hinata turned around, her eyes gleaming with the faintest of unshed tears. Tsunade-sama, why did you let Naruto in Anbu? You knew he would be on such dangerous missions, why risk him? Replied Hinata. Tsunade gave her a sorrowful glance. She took out her hidden supply of sake from her drawer. She took out a tiny cup, filled it with a tiny bit of the alcoholic beverage, and took a deep sip. She sighed contentedly and turned back to Hinata. I had no choice. It is a risk that must be taken, to fast-track Naruto's development. The showdown with Akatsuki will definitely happen soon. Anbu was the fastest way to speed up Naruto's development even more. They have the finest equipment and ninjas available, which in turn will push Naruto to new heights. Naruto is our trump card in this fight, and the stronger he gets, the better chance Konoha has for survival, stated Sunade. The pale beauty scowled before acknowledging the Hokage's wisdom with a nod. She straightened her back and strode out, saying, I understand, Tsunade-sama. I will see you soon, with Naruto. A ghostly smile came from Tsunade's mouth. She muttered, if anyone can save Naruto, it's you, Hinata. She poured herself another cup and sighed. She hesitated before bringing it to her lips. She muttered, it must be you, and then she started to drink. Then, as a backup plan, she looked at a talisman she had always kept on her desk. Hinata touched down at the front gate's entrance. In record time, she had prepared and packed. The Hyuga Kunoichi was prepared to kick ass with their full arsenal. Her eyes had become determined, confident, and focused. You'll be saved, Naruto-kun. I swear, she cursed. She was the first to frown. She let out a sigh and paced for a few minutes before Neji touched down beside her. Worried, Neji inquired. With their relationship having improved in the 2.5 years since Naruto's departure, Hinata gave him a gentle glance. Even though Neji was still somewhat rigid and tense, he had greatly relaxed and was no longer the ice cube that he had been. A bit, yes. Too bad Naruto is on a training trip, we could really use him at this moment, said Hinata. Neji nodded in agreement, saying, he would be a valuable addition to the team. The ninjas came over the course of the next 2 minutes. Last to arrive, Shikamaru wrapped his arms in bandages. Mission mode activated, his lazy attitude gone. With Neji's "let's move" order, the ninjas took off. With a great sigh from the village of sand, Gaara placed his feet up on the desk and the pile of papers next to him was completed. With a contented expression, he reclined in his chair and looked forward to spending the remainder of the afternoon unwinding. Gaara noticed that a red talisman on his desk began to flash. When his chair hit the floor, he quickly formed another chair out of the sand he had conjured from a nearby gourd, which held him upright. He got to his feet, poured chakra into the talisman, and a wall nearby turned into a portal. He went down into the portal, nodding to his Anbu guards who were hidden there. He was transported by the portal to a dimly lit hallway with a door at the end. He opened the door with the Suna symbol on it and shut it behind him as he walked calmly down the hallway. He walked into the spacious meeting room, where a large pentagonal table was illuminated by tubes of visible blue chakra. Chakra candles were also used to light the space, and neither the table nor the space appeared to run out of chakra. The earth herself was the source of power in that room. It had been a gathering spot for all of the cages since Gaara had known about it. He sat down at his place after noticing Senju Sunade, the am.I'm Hokage, seated there. Sunade said, "Kage-sama, I hope you are well." Gaara gave a nod. Gaara said courteously, "I hope you are in good health as well, Hokage-sama." Sunade smiled. With the help of Naruto and Hinata, who had transformed him, she had developed a close friendship with Gaara, who had helped to transform Sasuke and solidify their alliance. "It will only be the two of us today, but let's get serious," replied Sunade. Gaara nodded once more, a man who doesn't say much. "The Anbu team we sent to destroy the Akatsuki base has been a failure," she stated. Gaara leaned forward as his eyes grew wide. "Uchiha Itachi sent me a message a day after they had left, signaling a trap. Somehow, somewhere there is someone who has infiltrated our information and spy network. I have already overhauled my network, searching for a possible mole. I suggest you do the same. However, this is not the only thing. I am sending shinobi to extract the Anbu. You recall Uchiha Naruto, and the Kyuubi no Kitsune sealed within him?" replied Sunade. "Yes," Gaara said, "I remember him." Sunade braced herself and said, "He was one of the Anbu sent on this mission." "You fool," exclaimed Gaara, getting to his feet. "You send Naruto on a mission, which is basically a giant flea trap for Akatsuki to capture him," replied Gaara. Early replied, "I will explain my reasons at a later date. However, I need to know whether you can provide support. I have already sent 3 teams who will be heading towards the operation base," replied Sunade. Gaara racked his brains and scowled. "The only Junin I can spare is Temari. I might be able to provide another ANBU team, but I'm not sure. But I can definitely at least send Temari," stated Gaara. Sunade gave a nod. Temari was a talented ninja, but she had hoped for more. Sunade said, "I'll keep you informed if anything changes." Gaara got up and walked back to his office, nodding goodbye. With a flick of his hand, an Anbu stepped forward into his office. Gaara pulled his seat up and sat down, saying, "Rat, see if there are any extra Anbu teams available. And send for Temari." "As you command, Kage-sama," said Rat, and he vanished. Gaara then opened his drawer after shooing the other Anbu bodyguard out. He used his sand to pick the lock on a hidden compartment in his drawer and took out a cup and a bottle of sake. He filled a cup and took a sip while soothingly closing his eyes. Gaara asked himself aloud, "I wonder whether the Hokage drink." He muttered, "Probably not, knowing how responsible she is." A day before, the smallest glimmer of chakra that identified the genjutsu was visible only to Crane, who saw it first. The air vent that circulated through the building was visible when she let go of the genjutsu. Large wind fans and 4 other main vents operated beneath the base, making it impossible to suffocate or poison it. One by one, they entered after breaking through the vent's cover. They moved swiftly into the area, masking the sounds of their movements with a sound barrier bubble. They descended into the base, hidden underground, crawling swiftly through the vents. Proceeding to the intersection on the left, then the right, then the left, then the right. The strategy relied heavily on memorization, with Tiger setting the standard. It was his duty as the leader to make sure he understood the proper procedure. He had to be sure that the other Anbu members did not make a mistake, even though they all knew the layout by heart. Rabbit gestured downward as the tiny, claustrophobic vent opened up a little. Then, as quietly as he could, he began using a kunai to drill a hole. The target was reading some papers in the main dining hall, a large, open space, when he put his face against the wall. Rabbit nodded, sensing that there were no chakra signatures nearby, and the Anbu swiftly slammed chakra into the vent, causing it to collapse. Crane's bow and arrow were already out when they fell, and as she did, an arrow smashed into his forehead. The target vanished in a cloud of smoke after the Anbu team landed lightly on the table and stared at him. A shadow clone, Mole hissed, scanning the area. The room had a big table and lots of chairs, and it was lit by torches. Ninjas, however, arrived to trap them at two entrances that faced north and south beyond the lights. Shin smirked evilly as he strode up with assurance. Despite the large number of ninjas, Fox could see that many of them were also regular bandits. Or cannon fodder, as the Kyuubi liked to refer to them. Fools, you fell right into my trap, he grinned. Ryanyoku Shin, Tiger muttered, giving him a fierce look. Tiger looked around. There were no other ways out. Kill them all, Shin yelled, taking a step back. Ninjas charged in two waves, coming from both sides. Crane shot an arrow from the north side, and the first man instantly jerked back. Fox placed his hands in a familiar hand seal and looked around. Kage Bushin no Jutsu, he said quietly, and 20 clones materialized all around them. The room instantly turned into a battleground. As the ninjas approach, Fox and his clones launch waves of shuriken and kunai. With their own weapons flying through the air, the Akatsuki ninjas responded. A number of Fox's clones were eliminated, and the weapons of some Akatsuki ninjas killed or wounded others. Crane drew 2 arrows and leapt into the air. She fired, using hand seals quickly and flinging her bow into the air. She uttered the words, Kage Arrow no Jutsu, so rapidly. As the front ninjas jumped out of the way, 2 arrows became 20. Not so fortunate were those behind them, as multiple people were pierced by the lethal arrows. Crane caught her bow as he landed with a flourish. Fox repeated the phrase, Kage Bushin no Jutsu, as 10 more clones seemed to appear in place of the ones that had been dispelled. He repeated, Sharingan, as the world grew slower. Mole threw a few poison senbons that were concealed from his sleeves. 1 small drop of poison was completely lethal. When it pierced 2 unfortunate bandits, the toxin immediately caused them to scream in agony as it processed through their bodies. Then Mole leapt into the air and threw another wave. 8 bandits and 5 Akatsuki ninjas were killed in 3 seconds. Then they clashed as the distances drew closer. Except for Crane, the Anbu drew katanas, and they clashed. There was no room or space for ninjutsu, it was close combat kenjutsu and taijutsu. 1 slash, then another, and Tiger ducked. He rolled forward off the table and away from 3 more kunai after parrying 1. With his katana slashing out at the ninja's throat, he leapt over a leg sweep. After kicking another ninja out of his chest, he slipped past a bandit's defense and slashed him in the chest. He was attacked by a bandit with a huge club that was swinging wildly. His haphazard style drove Tiger back, and his comrades made room for him. He made a powerful swing, but Tiger only needed that. Tiger ran his katana through him as he drew his arms back for another blow. In the interim, Alpha 2 hurried through the air vent while keeping a close ear out for adversaries. They swiftly landed after opening the grate that led to the training rooms. The training rooms were located at the base's base, and they would use explosive tags to bring down the building at the very end, destroying the base. After a swift landing, they got to work, focusing on pillars in particular. Unable to respond in time, an Anbu was destroyed almost immediately by a hail of shuriken and kunai. One by one, a series of traps exploded in the training room. Weapons, fireballs, and massive boulders and rocks swung in all directions. The 3 Anbu that were still alive dodged. A viciously carved log caught one and impaled him as it swept across the room. After narrowly avoiding the final shuriken trap, the 2 survivors spun to the entrance, where 20 ninjas smiled at them. After exchanging curses, the 2 Anbu drew their katanas. In the interim, with the help of a Suna team, the Kappa team ambushed the base's entrance. Long-range support would be supplied by the other Suna team. Junins fell quickly, 4 in a row. After landing in the clearing, the Anbu studied the closed door to determine how to open it. But that was when the enemy attacked. A variety of thrown weapons and exploding tags bombarded them from all sides. Shuriken and kunai flew through the air, slamming into armor and flesh. Ninjas poured in from the surrounding area, and 3 were killed instantly. In response, the Anbu launched their own wave of Senbon, Shuriken, and Kunai at the ninjas. Some evaded or employed substitution jutsus, while others succumbed to the weapon attacks. They were attacked from all sides, and weapons were drawn. Crow, the Kappa leader, widened his eyes. They were greatly outnumbered and surrounded on all sides as he looked around. Then he understood. Everything had been a ruse. The Junin 4 had served as bait. Mission has been compromised. Pull back at once, he yelled. He shouted, retreat, and ducked beneath a katana slice. After deflecting the ninja's sword with his katana, he spun around and slashed at the leg. The slash knocked him off balance, and the ninja was unable to block the blow. Then, with a swift stab, Crow thrust his katana roughly through the ninja's abdomen. He barely avoided a flying fire dragon that slammed into the ground behind him as he pulled out the blade. His team was overwhelmed when he turned around. One Anbu let out a cry of agony as a genjutsu struck her, but she was knocked unconscious right away. Damn it, mumbled Crow as he ran. The remaining members of the Anbu team continued to fight, attempting to make their way out. A number of them were able to break out of the pincer trap and enter the forest. However, the remaining gaps were promptly closed. The Anbu died there, while the rest lay dead in the cold blood. The 3 remaining Anbu were dragged away, unconscious, the doors opening into the base. Akatsuki ninjas surrounded the 9 dead Anbu bodies. The remaining Anbu retreated from the scene of the carnage, disappearing from view. The mission didn't work out. With his head thumping and yelling at him in agony, Fox opened his eyes. He gripped his head and groaned. He shook his head in an attempt to get his bearings. He then recalled cutting 2 ninjas, avoiding a katana slash that would have severed his head, and then being struck in the chin by a chakra-powered kick that sent him crashing into the adjacent wall. Before he could respond, he was knocked unconscious by a tonfa strike that followed. He raised his head to watch the remaining ninjas gather in front of the Anbu. Since he had been knocked out, his clones had vanished, overpowering them. He saw Crane sidestep an outstretched blade, knocking the ninja to the ground, then quickly pull out an arrow and shoot at a nearby ninja, striking him in the forehead. After strangling another ninja with her bowstring, she screamed as a katana sliced through her from behind. As Crane used her remaining strength to twist her bow and strangle the Akatsuki ninja, Fox heard the snap of the neck. She dropped her bow and fell forward, slamming into the heavy timbers and the table she was standing on. She was motionless as blood gushed from her back. Fox winced before noticing Mole standing close by, motionless, and covered in innumerable gunshot wounds. Below him the stone floor was smeared with a red pool. Tiger used his katana to block a spear thrust before being knocked out by the sheer number of ninjas. Fox struggled to crawl away but was stopped in his tracks by 2 legs. Weakly, he raised his head to Shin's smiling face. He said, "Good night," before slamming his foot into Fox's head and knocking him out once more. In the grassy field where the Kyuubi sat with their tails flapping wildly, Naruto stood up. The fox uttered the word, "fail," with a faint smile on its vulpine face. Naruto scowled at the direct demeanor of the fox. The Kyuubi remarked plainly, "It looks like you got your ass kicked." Naruto looked around and muttered, Yeah, I know. It's been some time since you visited me. I get rather lonely, you know." Naruto scowled and said, "Stop bullcrapping, Kyuubi. You're a demon." After grinning malevolently, the Kyuubi got to his feet. The Kyuubi sighed and said, "You must leave, or else they will find out who you are, and then we will both perish." "Ah, lovely, chakra shackles. I know, I'll think of something, chakra shackles," asked Naruto. "Oh, crap." As it disappeared from view, the Kyuubi grinned and said, "Well anyway, you better think fast, because your wake-up call is right here." When Fox came to, he realized that he was in a big cell, and as his eyes gradually adapted to the little light, he saw that there were 3 unconscious prone bodies of Anbu lying in the cell as well. He also saw that his wrists were bound with chakra chains, which were special chains that prevented breakage and allowed him to perform jutsu, and that his ankles were also bound tightly, but with chains. His weapons and clothing were gone, he was only wearing his pants, and his pockets were empty, until he was kicked in the ribs, which caused him to groan. The ninja smiled at him and spat, "Awake finally, are you?" The man, unnerved by the emotionless Anbu mask, kicked Fox hard in the head, and Fox shook away his unconsciousness as he watched the ninja wake the other 3 ninja. Fox just stared back, without saying anything. "Well, the fortunate ones are your fallen comrades. We always enjoy a little sport," the ninja smiled. A group of ninjas entered the cell with a smile on their faces, and all 4 Anbu eyes turned to them. Don't kill them, but hurt them. The ninja stated, we need to get information from these scum, and Shin wants them to suffer. Everyone nodded and smiled. The ninja adamantly repeated, no weapons or blades, just beat them to a pulp. The group nodded again, and Fox moaned as 3 came toward him, 2 dragging him up by the arms and the 3rd slamming his fist into his ribs. The 3 laughed. Not so tough now are you without your weapons, was a taunt directed at the person who had struck him. Fox immediately used his strength to shake himself free from the 2 holding him, headbutting the ninja fiercely with his head, and as he fell to the ground, the mask slammed into his forehead, cutting the ninja open. He then shifted his weight to the left, jumping and drop-kicking the other ninja away, and he hit the ground hard before the final ninja slammed his knee into his back, causing Fox to groan in agony as he was hauled up. The ninja behind him smiled, easy muscles, and then Fox's nose touched his back. The ninja's curse was like music to his ears, and he found himself hitting the cold stone hard once more as the ninja holding him dropped him. He waited for all 3 of the ninja to come at him with a vengeance, and they hit him mercilessly, and he could only lie there helpless and silent, refusing to give them the satisfaction of hearing him scream in pain. The world rocked when the first kick struck his skull, and then his gut, causing him to lose his breath, then his back, another fist, a face, and a torso. The beating went on until they finally stopped, breathing heavily, and they lifted Fox's broken body up, lifting his arms and the chains onto a nearby hook, suspending him by his wrists in the air, the chains digging into his wrists and his head hanging limply. Strolling forward, one of the 3 raised his head and looked directly into Fox's eyes. He slammed a final fist into his ribs after saying, enjoy yourself, for that was only the beginning. Fox hung there lean and shivered in agony, his vision hazy as he heard the last screams of his comrades' beatings and watched the 3 leave, and then everything went dark. It would take a while to get to the mission grounds, so Neji led the team as fast as they could. After 8 hours, he halted the group, but Hinata paced around, obviously nervous. Sakura looked at the pacing Kunoichi and said, Hinata, you need to calm down. Hinata glanced up at Sakura, then nodded and sat down slowly. Time was of the essence, so each ninja took a 30-minute break before continuing, eating a food pill before stopping to rest. Neji promptly set out for them to take turns in pairs to keep a lookout, and they ate their food quickly before going to sleep. Hinata took watch first, and Neji sat next to her, making sure to occasionally activate their Byakugan to scan for any enemies. Neji concluded, you seem worried, Hinata saw. Hinata. Instead of using the Sama prefix, Hinata had insisted that Neji just call her Hinata. My only concern is for the Anbu. I hope they're all okay, she said, adding that, missions that go wrong can really get ugly. A hand was placed on her shoulder by Neji. Everything will be alright, all we have to do is cooperate and look out for one another, Neji said. After giving a nod, Hinata turned on her Byakugan. Neji, Hinata stated, there is a single individual approaching us directly from the southwest. Neji activated his Byakugan and got to his feet. Neji stated, only one of them. The 2 Hyuga were staring intently in the distance when Shikamaru woke up to prepare for his watch. What's going on? Shikamaru inquired. Neji said, someone is coming our way. With a nod, Shikamaru leapt into the trees. Shikamaru said, lure them near the fire, from his position. The Junin landed beside the campfire a few minutes later, and a shadow made contact with the Junin a second later. Before her hand reached her mouth, Tamari yelled, damn it Shika-kun, let go of me or so help me I will. MMPHHHH. She muttered. After realizing she wasn't hostile, Shikamaru let go of the jutsu and landed beside her, sticking his hands in his pockets and instantly adopting his lazy demeanor. He said, bored, don't wake the others, and turned to leave. Tamari shook a fist at his retreating back and glared at him. Stupid Nara, she growled. She smiled sadly as she turned to face the other 2 Hyuga. She stated plainly, your reinforcements have arrived. It is good to see you Tamari-san, anyone we can use will increase our chances of success, replied Hinata. Tamari gave the teenager a smile. Gaara simply instructed me to go toward the border and hope I could find you. What is the situation, then? Tamari inquired. Tamari scowled as they jointly described the mission to her. A surprise attack, Then, we'll have to move slowly as we make our way to the operation grounds. Don't mind if I go to sleep, Tamari said, waving before turning to leave the fire. I've been traveling all day. Hinata, go get some rest. Tomorrow is going to be a long day, Neji said. After giving a nod, Hinata turned to go to her tent. Deer looked at the other three Anbu and said, "My chakra tripwires have kicked in." Crow cast his gaze far away. Crow instructed them to gather your weapons and prepare to ambush, as they readied themselves. With their Byakugan active, Hinata and Neji observed the ANBU's movements as the 9-leaf and 1-sand ninjas landed on the trees, just out of the ANBU's line of sight. "Are they antagonists?" Hinata inquired. Neji pumped more chakra into his eyes and said, "I'm not sure. They may be disguised Akatsuki ninjas, even though they are dressed in Anbu suits. Take Choji, Ino, and Tamari, Shikamaru, and go around to their left. Take Hinata and Sakura, Lee, and go around to their right. We'll come from the front," Neji said. The ninjas leapt away, nodding. Crow scowled, feeling the air. "We're being flanked by them." Crow hissed, "Frontal assault," and the Anbu blasted in the direction of the main group. Neji and his group were prepared to accept, but the Anbu abruptly stopped and took a non-threatening stance. Neji's eyes narrowed as he said, "State your intentions. Your eyes make it obvious that you are from Konoha. Here, I'm Crow, the Anbu leader." As the other two teams landed next to them once more, Neji gestured with his hand and nodded, sensing that the Anbu was telling the truth. "I am Hyuga Neji, and we are your reinforcements. We are sent by the Hokage to extract any survivors," Neji replied. Crow gave a nod. "Come with us, we'll make plans at our camp," replied Crow. After Neji gave a nod, they made their way to the base. While being watchful, the Suna team was also discussing strategies for rescuing their fallen teammates. Their defeated stance vanished as they looked up, anticipating fresh reinforcements. Their leader, Monkey, said, "It's nice of you to join us, Tamari-sama. No Osama in the field, please. We need a way to get into their base, and we need to do it soon," Tamari responded. The group started preparing to attack the base and rescue their fellow soldiers. 2 guards from Akatsuki yawned. Several squads had been dispatched to apprehend or kill the remaining Anbu guards following the ANBU's defeat. They were immediately alerted when they caught a glimpse of a fatigued group of Akatsuki ninjas leading a number of Anbu. "Finally back are you," one sneered. The leader approached with a slight limp. "Just open the door," they were elusive. The Akatsuki guard turned around and said, "Fine fine." The doors began to open with his handprint. A kunai found the guard's throat, preventing him from moving. A Hyuga palm to the chest neutralized the other guard, who had dropped his defenses. The Anbu unbound them, and Neji turned to face them all. The entire Suna team assembled after emerging from the trees. Crow hissed, "You know the plan, now go." After nodding, the ninjas divided into 3 groups. Temari's Suna team would be one example. They would go after the intended target, Shin, with the intention of killing him. They turned left. Hinata and 2 Konoha Anbu would move to the right in order to liberate and remove the prisoners. To divert attention, the other members of the group would rush through the center. If the numbers got to them, they would retreat. The hallway opened up to a spacious room next door as the Suna team swiftly moved to the left. A number of Akatsuki members were idly reading or just chatting. They all stood up when the Suna team appeared, but Tamari wasn't in the mood for resistance. She needed to finish this quickly. With her hands flying into hand seals, she yelled, "Fa Tun! Daitapa!" rapidly. The ninjas were slammed into the opposite wall by the tremendous gust of wind that came from Temari's hands. The 3 Anbu came forward as soon as she finished saying her jutsu. All 3 also began sealing rapidly. "Doden! Doria, Dan!" they yelled. 3 earth dragons rose from the floor, slamming into the big Akatsuki groups as tiles exploded. Tamari with her fan and the Anbu with their katanas put those who were able to avoid the dragons on the defensive right away. One bandit's neck was cracked by Temari's fan as it lashed out. Before slitting his opponent's throat with his katana, one Anbu slammed his knee into the gut of another. At 2, the other Anbu slashed, sending them to the ground in agony. 12 Akatsuki soldiers were killed in 4 seconds. The words, "Let's move," came from Tamari. Hot on her heels, the Anbu bounded after her. Hinata walked quickly down the corridor. They had clearly taken the enemy by surprise, as evidenced by the quick elimination of a few patrolling guards. The 2 Konoha Anbu struggled to keep up with Hinata as she bounded down the hallway. She was driven to even greater heights by her love for Naruto. Hinata's weakness had diminished from 2.5 years prior. She gave her all during training, honing her style and completing her skills because she wanted to make Naruto proud. She was still in a state of emotional elation after passing the Junin test a few weeks prior. When she halted, she noticed that the prison's entrance was guarded by 5 ninjas. With their katanas at the ready, the 2 Anbu advanced. "Lady Hinata, we will create an opening for you, and then we will hold the entrance as long as possible," stated one. After glancing at them, Hinata nodded. The 3 of them knew what they had to do, even though they were aware that the 2 Anbu would probably not make it through holding the entrance. "Try your hardest," she advised. With 4 ninjas charging to meet them, the Anbu leapt forward. One of the 2 Anbu stopped and turned, his hands out in a springboard motion, as Hinata ran after them. Hinata stepped on the hands and spun elegantly to propel herself upward. She hurled multiple kunai at the ninjas as she spun through the air. While they were recuperating, the Konoha Anbu managed to seriously injure one of the Akatsuki ninjas by dodging. In order to capture Hinata in midair, the final ninja leapt forward. When Hinata saw it, she stumbled to meet him. Her other hand pushed his kunai hand away, creating an open path to his chest as she dodged his fist with a last-minute head juke. He was instantly killed when her palm struck his heart. She spun in the air and landed in the open doorway after pushing off with her palm on her now-dead enemy's chest. She turned and fled after glancing at the Konoha Anbu, who now faced much more equal odds. She threw multiple kunai with explosive tags at the heavy door that was close by, causing it to crack beneath the explosions. Then, with chakra smeared on her palms, she charged at the door. Debris flew as her hands slammed into the door, smashing them. Hinata's eyes widened as she slid to a stop. The remaining Anbu were hanging on the wall by their wrists. The Anbu was in such a sorry state that her eyes were met with cuts and bruises of all sizes. "Fox," she yelled as she rushed ahead. With a slight stir, the figure in the center raised his head. The porcelain was cool to the touch as Hinata hurried over to him and tightly cupped his masked cheek. With concern, she inquired, "Are you okay?" "Never better," was Fox's raspy response, as he coughed a little. Hinata muttered, "We need to get out of here," and raised Fox's body so he could unhook the chain. Fox sagged into her embrace, resting his entire weight on Hinata, who used chakra to support herself. She whispered, "Damn, you're heavy," and gently lowered him to the ground. Then she made a familiar pose with her hands. Kage Bushin no Jutsu. Alongside the original, 10 Hinatas showed up and assisted the other Anbu in removing the chains. But while her clones were assisting them, an Anbu member was hurled into the room, collapsing to the ground and slamming into the wall. After Hinata whirled to see the other Anbu member dash in, he was struck in the back by multiple kunai and collapsed to the ground, lifeless. 10 bandits and 5 shinobi smiled at her as they entered the door. Before turning to Hinata, she reflected, "Those 2 Anbu took out 6 of my shinobi, oh well." The leader, a female kunoichi, took the initiative. She had a savage-looking spear tied to her back and a bandage over one eye. She had on a red top and khaki short shorts. She looked at the 10 bandits and remarked, "Bandits, the one who kills her gets triple pay for 3 months." With a roar of approval, the bandits surrounded her. Hinata waved her clones away as they gazed at her anxiously. She stepped forward and said, "Protect the Anbu." The bandits, all brandishing some sort of weapon, formed a semicircle around her. In addition to the enormous mace and spear, many of them carried katanas. The final one was armed with a bow and arrow. "Get her," the kunoichi hissed. With a roar, they charged together. When Hinata's Byakugan activated and she straightened up, they were nearly upon her. Hinata screamed, "Kaden," before spinning and launching them to the ground. The first one came back, charging with a slash that was obviously intended to cut off Hinata's head. He fell to the ground dead after she swiftly ducked, shifted her weight forward, and slammed her palm into his chest. In order for the tip of the mace to miss face, Hinata then shifted her body weight backwards and leaned back a little. After shifting her weight forward once more and slapping his left hand punch out of the way to the left of his body with her right hand, she stepped forward and forced the bandit to drop the mace when her left palm met his elbow. Then she reached forward and killed him by slamming her palm against his heart. She shifted her weight downward as he fell, sending her foot flying and slamming into a bandit's head behind her. She then spun and twirled on the ground, smoothly sweeping one leg over the other. She then performed a handstand, avoiding the katana blade and pushing past the fallen bandit who had slashed at her from the ground with his blade. After landing, she lifted her foot and kicked him in the throat like an axe. Then she kicked another bandit away with her foot rearing to her back. She followed the bandit, shifting her weight to her left, deflecting his blade upwards with a thick chakra shield at her palm before tapping his two shoulders with her fingers, making them useless. Then, turning to the other bandits, she tapped the defeated bandit's forehead behind her, causing his brain to mush. As the bandit fell to the ground, she remained silent. The one who growled, "She's good." Hinata looked at them calmly but confidently, standing side on and shifting her weight to her back foot, which she brought behind her. Her left arm was held at a 90-degree angle, arm and side, palm facing them, and her right hand was held just away from the knee in front of her. Water was the inspiration for Hinata's taijutsu technique. Almost effortlessly, she changed the enemy's limbs with her keke genkai and natural flexibility, then shifted her weight forward and finished them with a gentle tap. While some Hyuga elders despised her for deviating from the traditional gentle fist style, many would argue that she was performing a dance when she executed this taijutsu. 3 months before Naruto returned for the Junin exams, she performed it for the first time. She disproved the skeptics by defeating another Hyuga in a full-on taijutsu battle. Dance of the Sunlit Water was the title she had given it. She was promoted because the judges were impressed by her inventiveness and complexity. She spat, "Come at me, cowards." The rest of the bandits charged. But Hinata launched an offensive. After shifting her weight to the left and avoiding a vertical slash, she approached the man directly while holding an orb. Rasengan. When Fox looked up, he saw Hinata working on the other bandits, while the one who had eaten Hinata's Rasengan was dead, having fallen from the hole in the wall. As he watched Hinata glide elegantly across the ducking and a katana silently passed over her, he muttered, "That's hot." He saw her momentum carry her to the user, who kneed her groin and swiftly slapped away her defending hand. Before she slammed both palms against his chest, his final motion was to put his hands to his groin while opening his mouth in a girlish scream. The other shinobi were about to make their move when Fox saw them twitch. He hissed, "Damn it," as the two Hinata clones lifted him from the agony that swept through his body. Then he saw one of the shinobi flick his wrist, sending a kunai in the direction of Hinata's clones. The Hinata clone moved in front of Naruto as two kunai made their way directly toward him, one arm wrapped around her petite frame for support. Before her eyes widened at the blade sticking out of her stomach, the Hinata clone caught the kunai. After the clone vanished in a cloud of smoke, the other released Fox to take a ready position. The original Hinata saw that her clones were dying, but she was too busy being harassed by the 4 bandits who were obviously seasoned and veterans of their trade to respond or produce more. Fox swore as he was quickly released and made his way directly to the ground. He was too hurt to move at all. He let out a painful scream as he fell hard to the ground. "Fox!" exclaimed Hinata, momentarily distracted before a foot struck her face and knocked her to the ground. When Fox looked up and saw the other Hinata clone vanished, he grimaced. He also saw the remaining Anbu being swiftly killed by the other 3 shinobi. Beside her comrade, the female kunoichi waltzed over. The ninja jerked to Hinata, who had slain another bandit, saying, "It's clear this one means something to the girl, if her reaction is anything to go by it." The other shinobi smiled and asked, "What shall we ever do to this scum then?" "Pick him up," she commanded. To restrict the amount of oxygen Fox could breathe, the ninja pulled him up and put an arm around his throat. She yelled, "Hey, whore!" The female shinobi. With the chakra visible from her palm, Hinata slammed her chakra-enhanced palm onto the final bandit's face, sending him to the ground lifeless. Then she turned slowly to the 5 shinobi. The female shinobi pointed to Fox, who was struggling weakly and had lost all of his strength from his previous beatings, and asked, "What does this one mean to you?" For a brief moment, Hinata's eyes widened, but the kunoichi saw it and smiled. "Weakness. Feelings. Take advantage of it. Ninjas are nothing but tools. You should never get attached to any one tool. All men are tools as well, simply they're to be used at whim, serving your every beck and call," laughed the kunoichi. Hinata asserted, "Ninjas are people, not just tools." She walked over to Fox and said, "That kind of thinking is what will doom you, little whore. We have your man and there's nothing you can do." As she heard Hinata growl, she smiled and ran a hand across Fox's chest, taunting him, "Such a great physique, I wonder how hard he works out. That slut has no right to touch my man." Hinata thought angrily. "Come on, I must do this while she is preoccupied. Ignore your fatigue and the pain." Yes, the chains are off. With blood streaming from his wrists where he had wriggled free of the chains, Naruto thought. Fox, gasping for air, merely mumbled something to the female kunoichi. Whispering, "I am the bone of my sword, Naruto felt the Kyuubi's chakra return to his body, gradually repairing the damage. Observing Hinata's enraged expression, she grinned and said, "Firm muscles too. I may just keep this one as one of my toys." The kunoichi gestured to the bandits, dead bodies, and said, "No one can save you, little girl. Go back to Mummy and Daddy, and I'll let you go free, since I don't have to pay those fools." Hinata calmly declared, "I will not leave him behind," but this only infuriated the kunoichi. With a kunai in her hands, she raised it to Fox's neck and hissed, "No. Then you can have him as a corpse." "No," exclaimed Hinata, leaping forward with her hands moving. Fox yelled, "Unlimited blade works." The world went completely dark in an instant, and then Hinata's wind slammed into the group. Fox, however, was the only person in the group to stand. Fox approached Hinata and gave her a gentle peck on the cheek before turning to face the group while wearing his fox porcelain mask. He said softly, "Welcome to my world," as a plethora of blades appeared in front of the 5 shinobi. The kunoichi mumbled, her eyes wide with terror, "How is this possible?" The reality marble came to an end as the blades sped forward. In the real world, Fox fell heavily to his knees before Hinata caught him, just managing to keep him standing. His head was drawn into her lap. When he allowed the Anbu mask to be pulled, her hand grasped it and removed it. Naruto gazed at her, his blue eyes gleaming with joy and pride but also exhaustion. Hinata grinned at him despite the drop of blood on the corner of his mouth. Naruto remarked, "You looked hot out there." At that point, Hinata only recalled throwing her ripped jacket in front of a bandit, using it as a cover to kill him by pressing her palm against his chest. She was therefore only wearing a form-fitting black shirt that had a few small cuts from katana swipes on it that could be seen on her pale white skin. Her face quickly lit up, but she returned the smile. She lifted his head to meet her lips and whispered, "I just want to look good for you." As Hinata's head raised to see Kiba and Orochimaru enter the room, they were millimeters away from each other when they heard a startling noise. The Anbu member wrapped around Hinata's shoulder caused Kiba to blink in surprise. "Fox is the only survivor, unfortunately. I was outnumbered, the other 2 Anbu died holding the entrance," Hinata stated with sorrow. Kiba ran a hand through his hair and sighed. "More fatalities. It's okay, Hinata-chan. You did your best, and you at least saved one. We're pulling out now." Shiro was killed by Tamari, in the bathroom doing his business ironically. Most of the defenders were killed, but a few slipped through in your direction. "I'm glad you're okay though. Come on then, let's go," replied Kiba. "Please, my equipment," Fox said softly. Hinata nodded, and they found the storage room with Kiba's assistance. Without the Akatsuki touching his vest, Kiba and Hinata assisted Fox. As it sat there with the rest of the looted equipment, it was obvious that they would examine it later. Then, as Hinata looked around, she discovered his bracers, armor, and katana, which she promptly sealed into a scroll. He then put on his long black Anbu cloak. Naruto went to the base's entrance, where the remaining Rookie 10 and Anbu were waiting. "Rest in peace, brothers and sisters," Crow muttered as he raised both fingers to his lips. He triggered his chakra, causing the base to collapse in on itself and the soil to ripple from an underground explosion. Without saying a word, Crow said, "Let's go." Later, they would pay tribute to their fallen comrades. Later, Fox would be healed by Sakura and Hinata, allowing him to travel. As they returned, there was little conversation and a somber atmosphere, with each ninja lost in their own thoughts. But when Fox and Hinata were by themselves, they would spend time together in silence, holding hands or conversing softly. According to the rules, they were not allowed to disclose that Naruto was in Anbu. Sunade took out the scratchy early the following morning, her hand trembling from the coin. The amount of sleep she had received was evident from the bags under her eyes. She took a deep breath and scratched the 3 circles that the reflective material covered. Then she exhaled a sigh of calm. She was defeated. Then she unlocked her secret cabinet, revealing a little stack of sake. She took out her little drinking cup and poured a little drink for herself. She drank deeply and let out a sigh. She ran a hand through her hair and muttered, "I would expect heavy casualties, especially to the Anbu. It really weakens Konoha now." The doors of the Hokage office opened at that moment, and Shizune entered with Taunton, who squealed with delight upon seeing Sunade. For a moment, Sunade grinned as Shizune disappointed Taunton. The curious pig strode towards Sunade and leapt into her open embrace. Sunade embraced the adorable giant, who oinked contentedly. Gazing at Sunade, Shizune inquired, any news? Sunade replied, nothing, but other missions have gone well. After giving a nod, Shizune left, probably to fetch Sunade additional documents. Sunade said, it'll be okay, won't it Taunton? To the pig. Taunton just oinked contentedly and nuzzled her with its muzzle. Sunade sighed, I'm glad you're so optimistic Taunton. Wish I could be. They had arrived at the gate of Konoha. After a brief glance, the two Chunin at the gate gestured them in. The one who said, you look like hell. Crow turned to the group after giving a simple nod. I'll go hand the report into Hokage-sama. I believe debriefing will be held an hour after that, so meet outside the Hokage Tower in an hour, replied Crow. The others nodded, exhausted from the lengthy journey back. Hinata, Ino, Tenten, let's go relax in the hot springs, our usual place, said Sakura. Tenten and Ino nodded and brightened. They both exclaimed, we'll meet you there, and took off. Hinata scowled, considering hanging out with Fox instead, but she could see he was worn out and disheveled. She smiled at Sakura as he gave her the faintest nod. Hinata replied, sure, I'll gather my belongings and meet you there. Sakura nodded and brightened. See you there, Hinata, she exclaimed as she hurried away. Tamari was in front of Shikamaru. With a faint smirk on her face at Shikamaru's gaunt face, Tamari questioned, you're not going to cry are you? Shikamaru muttered, troublesome woman, as he walked slowly away with his hands in his pockets. As she ran after him, Tamari exclaimed, wait, where are you going? With a shrug, the two Suna Anbu who were still alive left for the markets. Neji and Kiba accompanied them. Fox uttered the words, thank you for your rescue, before vanishing into a smoke cloud. Choji glanced at the other men. Food anyone? Choji inquired. With weary nods from the others, the mission team had essentially divided. After an hour of rest, the group appeared considerably better when Sunade stood in front of them. I have gone through the report with Crow, and we suffered terrible losses. Over a dozen Anbu dead, a huge loss, said Sunade. It was a failure from the start Hokage-sama. They knew we were coming. Someone leaked information, stated Fox. Sunade paced to the left and gave a grim nod. Sunade handed Tamari a bag that was sitting on her desk and said, we will have to look into it, and search for any possible information leaks. Tamari, Suna team, I thank you deeply for your services and your aid. Give Gaara Kazekage-sama my deepest gratitude. The Hokage received a bow from the 5 Suna ninjas. However, the secondary mission was not so much a failure. The elimination of Shiro puts a large dent in our enemy's plans. He was a very key figure for the Akatsuki, and his death will hurt them greatly, as well as the destruction of that base, Sunade said before turning to Fox. And we managed to extract one captured Anbu, who was the main objective, stated Sunade. Shikamaru questioned, what is so important about Fox, Hokage-sama? Without missing a beat, Sunade lied, he held key information into several assault plans on Akatsuki bases. It was vital that he did not fall into enemy hands. Shikamaru gave a nod. You are all dismissed. Well done, and take a rest. You deserve it, stated Sunade. The Kyuubi no Kitsune sat with its tail swishing as Sunade spoke. But the rift that had slowly started to open up in his world was unusual. The Kyuubi could only see darkness through the opening, as if someone had torn a page out of the sky. Utter blackness. Nothing happened when he pushed some of his chakra in the direction of the gap. Oh crap, he muttered. An astonished voice said, Naruto-kun. Is that you? Sakura was standing there, looking surprised, when Naruto turned around. Naruto grinned and said, Sakura-chan. Before making his way to the kunoichi. He stood beside her, a good head and a half taller than her, and Sakura's eyes widened. She smiled and remarked, you've grown Naruto-kun. Not so short anymore. Naruto chuckled as he recalled his simpler times. Naruto grinned genuinely and remarked, it's good to see you, Sakura-chan. You seem to have grown as well. It's good to see you too Naruto-kun. How was your training trip? Naruto let out a sigh. Tough, he grumbled, Ero-sennin trained me so hard I had to buy new clothes. Sakura chuckled as she admired his new appearance, which included a long black cargo pant with several pockets and red stripes down the sides, a fishnet shirt, and a black trenchcoat with a red spiral on it. Sakura frowned at the enormous amount of paperwork that was waiting for her and remarked, you look good, Naruto-kun. It's good to have you back, but I have to run along to the hospital now. Naruto questioned, you're a medic nin now? Sakura gave him a smile. She hurried away after saying, "You're not the only one who's improved. See you later." Naruto waved and grinned before moving on through the village. Sitting in his office with Hinata, Hiyashi questioned, "Is this really what you want to do? I have seen you blossom into a fine young woman and a powerful kunoichi, but you wish to put it on hold." "Yes, father. I want to take one semester of teaching at the Konoha Academy. One day I will be taking a genin team of my own, and I want to get some experience. I will not be a full-time teacher, father, only taking classes this semester first," said Hinata. To himself, Hiyashi hummed. All authority had returned to him since the majority of the elders were wearing the caged bird seal. "Very well, Hinata, if it is what you want." Hinata gave her father a smile. "It is," she declared as she got up and left. Hiyashi grinned and gave a small shake of his head. He turned to a scroll on his desk and muttered, "They really grow up fast." Hinata informed Naruto of his choice while they were sitting quietly hand in hand on a bench in a big park. Naruto questioned, "A teacher at the academy?" Before reflecting, "I'm sure you'll be great at it." Hinata gave her fiancé copyright a smile. "I love children, their almost carefree innocence. I want to teach them the best I can so that they can be the best ninjas they can be," said Hinata. "They'll be awesome ninjas, taught by the one and only Hyuga." Hinata, laughed Naruto. "You can come in some lessons too, Naruto-kun. And then we can both teach them," shouted Hinata. Naruto chuckled. As the tone of the conversation darkened, he said, "I'm not sure about that, Hinata-chan. My Anbu duties might take me away from Konoha for weeks at a time. Akatsuki is moving. Our Anbu are fighting a secret war as we speak now." Hinata tightened her hold on Naruto's hand and leaned against his shoulder, asking, "You'll be fine, won't you?" Naruto said softly, his eyes darkening from the news the Kyuubi had given him, "As long as you're with me, it'll be fine." Rewind. As he approached the rift, Naruto exclaimed, "What the hell is that?" "Really? I've never seen this before, kid, in my entire life," Kyuubi, now known as Kurama, uttered. "And you say your chakra didn't do anything to it?" "Would mine work?" replied Naruto. Kurama's big head shook. "It's worth a try, but I doubt it would do anything than tear more at that rift," he stated. After pumping some chakra in the direction of the rift, Naruto was absorbed by the darkness's boundless emptiness. Naruto questioned, "Could it be a way for you to be unsealed?" Kurama gave him a startled look. "I have not been home in over 200 years, kid. I don't know if this rift holds my freedom," Kurama replied. "Should it hold your freedom, for the love that you hold for my parents, please do one thing and talk to me before you attempt anything," replied Naruto. "Very well, until then I will monitor this disturbance." Kurama gazed at the rift for a long time as Naruto walked away. With sorrow in his red eyes, he asked, "Would you grant me freedom finally?" The flashback has ended. When Hinata first arrived at the academy, the kids fell in love with her right away. They admired her kind and compassionate disposition as well as her straightforward teaching methods. The 10-year-olds she taught were lively and still developing. Naruto had stated that he would be gone for a while after going on another Anbu mission. Since the majority of the other kunoichi her age were busy, Hinata felt a little alone without Naruto. Sakura was working long training shifts at the hospital while Ino was out on a mission with Team 10. Along with her cousin Neji and the two green creatures from Konoha, Guy and Lee, Tenten was also on a mission. Their time with Hinata was also limited because Kiba and Shino had their own clan trainings to attend. She therefore socialized with the teachers. She particularly liked talking to Yoshida K, one of the teachers. K, a Junin teacher as well, claimed in their many conversations during breaks that he chose to remain an academy teacher because he loved teaching so much. He claimed that even though he was 21, he could still do more, but for the time being, he preferred to teach the younger students. Additionally, they had many common interests, so it was only natural for them to discuss a wide range of topics with one another. As the weeks passed, Hinata inadvertently became closer to Kei, discussing how Naruto had grown more aloof from Konoha because he was always on missions and rarely spent time there because of the impending war. Kei had felt sorry for her. The two teachers conversing deeply and laughing long into the night at various restaurants was a fairly common sight at night. Others observed that Hinata had changed from feeling a little lonely to happier now that Kei was keeping her company. During this time, Naruto returned to Konoha, where they spent just a few hours together before he was called to an urgent mission. Hinata scowled and went in search of Kei to talk to, and later to cry because Naruto was never there, while Kei comforted her. After the Chunin exams, Neji, a close friend of Naruto, scowled at Hinata's actions but remained silent. He had no right to dictate to Hinata who she should spend her time with. Tenten had claimed that Kei was becoming too close to Hinata, but Neji had argued that Hinata-sama should make her own choices and that he didn't care if she spent her time with a harmless person. "Hinata-chan," exclaimed Kei. "Kei-kun." Hinata turned from her desk and asked him. "I'm tired of marking tests, so let's go eat," he exclaimed with enthusiasm. Hinata nodded and chuckled at his zeal. She said, okay, give me 5 minutes. I'll wait for you outside," Kei exclaimed with joy. While marking the tests, Hinata hummed to herself. She dismissed the feeling that something was missing before putting them away and going outside to meet Kei. Kei exclaimed, "I know a great place we can go." And the two departed the academy. They both gorged themselves on the delectable Japanese barbecue while conversing long into the night while seated in a booth in an open restaurant. Hinata wasn't one to argue when Kei insisted on walking her home when it was time to go. Hinata saw a familiar blonde emerge from a posh restaurant wearing a fancy black suit and white tie as they walked through the dining area. Confused, Hinata asked, "Naruto-kun?" Naruto looked in their direction. Hinata was most struck by his eyes, which were filled with anguish and hopelessness. He just gave her a blink, then shook his head and turned to leave. "Naruto!" exclaimed Hinata, stepping forward a little before Kei grabbed her wrist. Hinata turned to him and hissed, "Kei, let me go." However, Kei gave her a sympathetic look, his brown eyes displaying a hint of sadness. "He doesn't want to talk to you right now. Find him tomorrow when he's cooled down," he stated. After scowling at what he had said, Hinata turned to see Naruto had vanished. Hinata whispered, "Maybe you're right. I'll talk to him tomorrow." Hinata padded to her room as Kei dropped her off at the gate. As she shut the door and looked at the calendar, the eerie sensation she had been experiencing all day blossomed deeper in her chest. She then froze. Their third anniversary is May 15th. She recalled Naruto telling them that they needed to have a big celebration because they had missed their first two because he was on the training trip. She fell to her knees and mumbled, "Oh no. I must apologize tomorrow, I must." On the Hokage mountain, Naruto sat atop his father's head and gazed out over the village. With the moon shining in all its splendor and the stars twinkling at night, there was a reverent silence that was almost deafening. He was confused, depressed, and sorrowful. Had he not informed Hinata that he would be waiting for her in that restaurant at 7 o'clock, no matter what? Though he didn't understand, Naruto had heard from his friends that Hinata was frequently spotted in the company with another academy teacher. She loved him, didn't she? Didn't they have a marriage engagement? Even the Kyuubi remained silent as thousands of questions raced through Naruto's mind, leaving him to ponder. He heard footsteps behind him. A quiet voice said, "I thought I would find you here." Glancing at her sorrowfully, Naruto questioned, "Ba-chan, why does it hurt so much?" With a sorrowful smile, Sunade sat beside him and put an arm around him. Sunade comforted her, saying, "I'm sure Hinata has her reasons, Naruto-kun, it's okay. I waited in that restaurant for 4 hours, never doubting that she wouldn't show up," he said. "I sat there, with music playing and happy couples all around me. I smiled as the waiter asked me several times where my date was, and I had said with confidence that she was coming. I tipped the waiter for delicious food that sat in front of me, that I didn't eat. I watched as the tables began to empty, and the waiters began to clear. And when it was closing time, the same waiter simply took my shoulder and told me it was closing time. I had smiled at him, and gave him a large tip and walked out, to his protests. Knowing that she didn't show up hurt Ba-chan. Seeing that she spent our anniversary with another man, it killed me. That's your faith in people, Naruto-kun. You always think the best of people, an admirable trait but one that sometimes leads to disappointment. That is the path you take." Leaning into Tsunade's embrace, Naruto muttered, "I just returned from that mission, only to discover that I've lost the only woman that I love. What am I going to do, Ba-chan?" "Ba-chan," he muttered, his eyes full of unshed tears. Tsunade simply held him closer without responding. When Hinata was summoned to her father's office the following day, she was numb. She was so worn out that she was crying so hard that she was hardly able to sleep. She had heavy bags on her face and bloodshot eyes. The branch servants insisted that she see the clan head first, despite her intense desire to go find Naruto. Everyone said Hyuga Hiyashi knew everything. Hiyashi was one of those men who had the all-seeing eye and could literally know everything. As she walked into the office and took a seat, he appeared serious and grim. "Father?" Hinata inquired. Hiyashi let out a sigh to himself. With a voice as icy as ice, Hiyashi said, "Hinata, my daughter, I have heard rumors of your actions." Hinata suppressed a shiver that went through her back at her father's voice as she looked at him in confusion. "Do not think nothing escapes me, Hinata, I am your father. It is my responsibility to look out for my children. Your actions bring disrespect to the Hyuga name," Hiyashi continued. What are you talking about, father? Are you so blind that you cannot see that your relationship with Kei was clear for all to see? That you, a promised woman to another man in marriage, are openly dating another behind his back? How do you think this damages our reputation?" Before everything made sense to Hinata, she froze at the accusations and felt ice run through her. Clearly, her father read her expression. "Do you see now, daughter? How all of Konoha is talking about you and Kei, knowing that you are already engaged to Uchiha Naruto and yet are so loose as to mingle with others so freely? Do you know the things they say? You have brought shame onto the Hyuga family with your actions, Hinata." "I am not pleased," Hiyashi continued. As she realized the magnitude of her error, Hinata leaned forward and exclaimed, It's not like that." Tears were starting to well up in her eyes. "You stupid girl," Hiyashi remarked. "How could you do this to Naruto?" Hinata shuddered in front of him, tears streaming down her cheeks, and Hiyashi's eyes grew softer. "If it was your teammates you ate dinner with, I would understand. But you and another man, of course people will jump to conclusions, especially seeing you both together all the time. Do not displease me further, Hinata, I am already disappointed in you with your actions. Should you wish to annul the marriage, I can have it arranged," Hiyashi murmured. Wiping frantically at her tears, Hinata yelled, "No. I love Naruto. I didn't think that being friends with Kei would do this. I didn't realize we were so close. I didn't realize that people would think of us like tot." With a melancholy smile on his lips, Hiyashi closed his eyes. "Your actions suggest far more than friendship, daughter. You are young and innocent, but also naive. Naruto would have thought the worst, seeing you with Kei last night when it was your 3rd anniversary. I suggest you find him, Hinata, apologize and explain your actions. Naruto is a fine man, but I fear you may have a long road ahead of you to earn his forgiveness. Not associating yourself with Kei could possibly also ease the rumors." Cheerful, Hinata nodded and walked out of the office. Neji was waiting for her when she opened the door and walked slowly down the hallway. "What are you doing, Hinata-sama? Can you not see that Naruto loves you with everything he has? Are you so willing to throw away what you have for some other man?" Neji responded with a scowl. He held Hinata tightly as she just crumpled into his chest, her cries echoing through the hallway. "How could you be so naive, silly cousin?" As he held her, Neji pondered. Hinata entered the office after arguing her way past the Hokage's secretary. Senju Sunade wasn't feeling well. She only slept for 4 hours after spending several hours comforting the upset Naruto before being summoned to an urgent meeting with Akatsuki's Anbu commanders of movement. The Shukaku was about to be freed, and the cage had been abducted. Furthermore, Shizun's removal of her sake stash didn't help. She was generally in a foul mood. Even with an emotionally dead Naruto who appeared to be death incarnate, she had sent Team Kakashi out. Though she knew he would do whatever it took to defend his brother Gaara, Tsunade hoped he was alright. Tsunade looked up at Hinata with annoyance as she approached her timidly. Resuming her paperwork, Tsunade grumpily said, "If you're looking for him, he's gone." She was trying to control her rage at seeing the Hyuga heiress. Hinata blinked at her, looking shocked. Hinata flinched inwardly as her stutter returned and she asked, where did Naruto go? You caused him a great deal of pain and sorrow, which left him in a distressed state. It sickens me that you're so free to show your love while he's away, Tsunade muttered angrily. Kei and I are not romantically involved. Naruto is my favorite, Hinata cried out. Your behavior says something different. Tsunade roared as she got to her feet. Don't think I don't know what goes on in this village, Hyuga Hinata. You go out with one Yoshida Kei almost every weekday, spending long hours in company alone. Hinata, he sat there for 4 hours. On your 3rd anniversary, I patiently waited for you for 4 hours. Do you know what happens to someone who does that? When they depart and discover you with another man, it kills them on the inside. Hinata fought back tears as Tsunade slumped in her chair, looking suddenly very old and exhausted. Hinata sadly thought, how would he ever forgive me? I've hurt him so badly. Hinata, Why would you do that? How come you would betray Naruto in that way? Looking at the ground, Hinata muttered, I didn't mean to. I was lonely, and Kei was a good friend. Please, I need to see him, Hokage-sama. I must grovel at his feet and apologize to him. Desperately, Hinata said, please, I need to see him. I need to let him know that I still love him. Sunade shook her head pitifully. I apologize, Hinata. He has left for Suna. Akatsuki abducted the cage, and he is now pursuing them. Before going to the academy, Hinata gave a numb nod. The day seemed to go by quickly, as though she had done nothing. Her classes were taught numbly, and she was thinking about a lot of different scenarios, mostly of Naruto rejecting her and leaving a which she couldn't handle. Her feelings were all over the place, but fortunately it was over. The day came to an end, and she started working on the last of the homework before Kei showed up later in the afternoon. Want to grab dinner, Hinata? He inquired. Hinata shook her head and gave him a sad look. A quiet, no, thank you, came from her. Kei, who was rarely rejected by the kunoichi, appeared taken aback. Related to last night, Kei smiled and said, I'm sure it's just a big misunderstanding. Yes, but the answer is still no. I'm sorry, Kei, but I can't associate myself with you anymore. I may have lost the love of my life because of my stupidity, Hinata said. I'm leaving the academy today, so this is my last day. What? Why give up? The kids adore you because you are an excellent teacher. Kei cried out. Is it not true that you love me? Hinata inquired. Red in the cheeks, Kei looked down, unsure of where to look. I apologize, Kei, but I am unable to reciprocate your feelings. I adore another man, to whom I have made a commitment. All that existed between us was friendship. Although I always thought of you as a friend, I enjoyed our conversations. I should have realized it was a bad idea to go out to dinner with you by yourself. Others might view it differently, but I assumed it was just us going out as friends. Kei, I can't let him go. Naruto is everything to me, and I cannot let him go. In addition to being my fiancé copyright, he is the light that illuminates my world, the brave knight who shines in the dark, the person who will pick me up when I fall and support me when I'm feeling low. Hinata looked up at Kei and said, I would rather die than lose him. Kei, you are a good man. You wanted me for yourself, and were all self-centered. I apologize for leading you on, which was my fault. She walked past him and out the door, saying, goodbye, Kei. Maybe I'll see you around. Slumping against the door, Kei cast a sorrowful glance at her departure. Che, I knew I shouldn't have gone after her. Who am I to compete with Uchiha Naruto? We really are selfish individuals, muttered Kei. Kei turned to see Iruka watching Hinata go out the front door after hearing a voice next to him say, it's not wrong to be with the one you want to be with. Both Naruto and Hinata were in the same year group. He was more of a quiet and reserved genius, while she was extremely shy. Together, though, they achieved unimaginable heights and will only get bigger. I am certain that Uchiha Naruto will become Hokage, just as I am certain that Hinata will be the heir apparent to the clan. Hinata has always chased after Naruto, following him with her gaze. She was slow and gentle, like a snail, and Naruto was quick and cunning, like a fox. However, he patiently awaited her so that he could let her into his world, and she seized the opportunity to finally walk hand in hand and by his side. Hinata's greatest strength and greatest weakness is Naruto. Iruka said, I'm sorry, Kei, but any dreams you had of Hinata ending the engagement and falling in love with you would never have come true. Kei muttered, I'm a bad person, aren't I? No, you are merely a human. Iruka retorted, but I also don't approve of you trying to steal girlfriends and fiancé copyrights. Iruka gazed at Kei with rage, and Kei's eyes grew wide. And I'm going to teach you a lesson for trying that, so you'll never think again of trying to steal someone away from another, Iruka said in a hushed voice. Mommy, Kei whimpered. Later, as the room was overflowing with papers, Kei sobbed while marking stacks of tests from all of the academy's teachers. As he walked out the door, Iruka grinned broadly and said, I'll see you later, Kei. Iruka gazed up at the sky and grinned. Fresh air, ah, was his response. Hinata waited patiently, day after day near the gate. She was resolved to meet Naruto when he came back. The gate guard roster which changed always saw her there. Quietly reading, thinking, simply staring out at the horizon or occupying her time. 2 weeks went by, and Hinata was still vigilant in her watch. She came early every morning, and left late at night. And then finally they came. Team Guy and Team Kakashi emerged from the horizon. Amusingly, Guy was carrying an exhausted Kakashi. As they were led in, Hinata stood there patiently, waiting. They all looked tired and worn out, but it was Naruto's hollow eyes that haunted her the most. They were so empty. Naruto turned to look at her and she looked at him, stepping forward. Naruto sighed, running a hand through his hair and moved towards her, only for Sakura moving intercept Hinata first. Guy motioned for the rest of them to move along, as it wasn't their business. Neji lingered hesitantly, but Tenten pulled him away. Hinata turned to face Sakura. Slap. Sakura had slapped Hinata, causing her face to turn sideways. Hinata blinked to herself, realizing that she deserved it. "How dare you?" she hissed, lifting her hand once more. Hinata turned her head back and glanced at Sakura, but she made no move to defend herself. Sakura started to swing, but a powerful hand grabbed her wrist as she pulled back. A weary voice uttered, "Sakura-chan, enough, please." Sakura turned to Naruto, who grabbed her arm, nodded, and brushed past Hinata, who was trying desperately to control her emotions as she looked at Naruto. "See, may we speak?" Hinata inquired, unable to read Naruto's face.
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, we weeb offline.